Hello, this is Storybooks channel. New videos are posted every day. Subscribe and click the bell.
Miranda dreamed of her only son having a rich life. She herself raised him alone, working 3 jobs to support him adequately. She had always thought that the more she invested in him, the greater the return. No one had ever canceled old age, and she didn't want to grow old in poverty. Here, graduated from the institute, Mom will try to find you a decent job, and the bride you fall. Mom, what kind of bride? Besides, you know I love Lisa, and we're planning to marry her. Don't be silly, Lisa. I don't want you to live like your father and me. He couldn't stand the poverty and he drank himself to death. Well, that's where he belongs. He's always been a weakling. You're a strong boy. So I'm asking you to take a more realistic view of life and not get down on yourself. I'll find you a rich bride. I'll do anything for that. By the way, I've already found you a job. It's a very big firm. Robert, you've probably heard of him. He's got branches all over the country. He's a very rich man with a daughter. She's handicapped. She was in a car accident with her mother when she was a kid. Her mother died, but her daughter survived, crippled. But that's okay. This is your chance, son. You don't have much time left to study, so right after the institute you'll arrange everything there. Your job is to please the management, and then we'll get closer to our daughter. Mom, are you serious? Is that how you want me to live with a cripple? You think it's wrong not to live with a cripple, but to become a rich man. Believe me, this Robert would do anything for his daughter. He loves her very much and will do anything to make her happy. And he'll raise you up so you won't need anything. And I'll be by your side as always. I'll help you with advice if you need it. And your Lisa won't go anywhere. She'll be waiting. Besides, you can do anything for her. You'll buy her an apartment. And you'll go out with her. Or we'll think of something else. Stephen didn't really like Mom's plan. He planned that right after the institute he and Lisa would start living together, rent an apartment, get a job, and then we would get married. But Mom, as always, decided everything in her own way. Lisa, my mom got me a job at a very big firm. Anyway, so far, our plans are a little off. Couldn't your mom get me a job too? I want to make good money too. I don't know, I'll talk to her. She's the one who made a deal with someone she knows, and she said she'd do her best. Well, you're my mother. You know, I know a lot of people, so she made a deal. Well, I'll be sure to ask about you. I'd love to work together. I'd always have you in my sights. You know how much I love you. I'd like that too. But I think your mom's got other plans that I can't get into. You know my mom. She wants what's best for me. But don't worry. We'll always be together. You'll see. I believe you. I just don't think it's going to be the same. Your mom is nice to me, but I can see she wouldn't want me to be your wife. A woman can sense that. No matter what I do, she doesn't like it. So I don't think we'll be together. Stephen was silent, but he realized he was wrong. His mom has completely different plans, and she really wants her son to become a rich man. She always told him as a child that when he grows up, she will do everything to ensure that they do not need anything. In fact, he didn't mind it himself. Didn't a rich life ever hurt anyone? Miranda met up again with her friend whom she had known for a long time. So, Sashenka, is there a place for my son at Robert's company? Miranda, I told you I'll do everything. Your son will work there. You can count on me. Of course, the position is modest, and the salary is small. But you understand, no one will hire him for a good job right away. And if he is clever, and I hope that your son is like you, he will not stay long in this place. He will quickly climb the ladder. Stephen, I think he'll do the right thing. He's a capable and intelligent boy. Listen, Miranda. As far as I know, you've known the Robert family for a long time. I heard he has a daughter with a disability. Yeah, it's a terrible tragedy. Only one daughter left alive. I don't know what happened there. I came to work there when it happened. You know, the kind of people they try not to talk about. But Robert adores his daughter, dusts her off. Kelly herself is a good girl, modest, kind, smart. She's graduating from college too, and most likely will ask her father to take her to his work. She's cool about the fact that she can't walk. She uses a wheelchair. I mean, what's the big deal? She's got security around her all the time, so they help her and there's no problem. As far as I know, her father didn't want her out of the house at all. He was afraid she'd be laughed at. You know how cruel young people are these days. But she insisted, and she made friends. In general, the girl lives like all of us. In fact, how else? With that kind of money and a colleague, you can live in peace, not like ordinary people. I understand, Miranda. There are so many different prosthetics nowadays. You see, she can actually get back on her feet. Plus, with their money, I don't think it'll be a problem. That's the thing. She can't have prosthetics. After the accident, she has serious problems with her body, with her heart. Trouble and stress is contraindicated. They've already checked everything. They've been everywhere, even to Germany. But everywhere the doctors said that she can't stand on prostheses. Her heart can't take it. Poor girl, so unlucky. She's not poor. Believe me, she's doing fine. Unlike you and me, even though we're healthy people, some people are lucky to be born with a golden spoon in their mouth. In our country, you have to work like hell to keep from starving. And if, God forbid, you get sick, it's a nightmare. There's not enough money for anything. Why are you so angry today? My Cindy happens to be asking for a new cell phone. Do you know how much it costs? So we had a fight about it. I'm raising her just like you raised your son. Where do I get that kind of money? I'm lucky with him in that sense. I've been explaining to him since he was a kid about the war and how hard it is for me, so he never asked me for anything. I guess you didn't talk to Cindy, and now she's all grown up and thinks you don't give her enough. So tell her to go to work, and she can buy her own cell phones. That's easy for you to say. She's a student of mine. How can I send her to work? I put up with it. She's doing the best she can. Sometimes I just don't have the strength. I understand. It's always like that with kids. It's okay. She's an adult. She'll soon realize everything, and better yet, she'll marry a rich man, and she won't know your dinner, and you won't be left out of pocket. You know what I mean? Oh, if only it were that simple. Don't be ridiculous. Cindy, you've got a girl with a college education. It's all in your hands. Besides, you know rich people. I never thought of that until now. I don't understand. Take her to different receptions, and she'll be noticed. Miranda left her friend satisfied with the result. She had learned everything she wanted for her son. For his sake, she would do anything. Her boy shouldn't need anything. He'd had enough bad luck in life, but now they'll be fine. The main thing now was that he should graduate. Kelly was sitting in her room as usual, reading a book. She had heard that her father was back from work, but he hadn't come to her room yet, so he was still busy. As soon as he is free, then they will definitely have dinner together like they always do. True, she had a serious talk with her father tonight, even though he was always trying to avoid it. Today she was determined to talk to him. As time went on, her father didn't show up, so she decided to go downstairs herself to ask him when they would have dinner. Everything in their house had been made for her, so that she could be in the rooms unobstructed and move about quietly, somewhere to pray. She found her father in the study, sitting at his computer, writing something. "Hi, I thought you'd forgotten about me. Turns out you're still working." "I am, daughter. My analytics department's all pissed off. They fired the hell out of everyone. They don't check at all. It's terrible what I pay their salaries for. I have to double-check everything in the field myself." "Can I see it?" "Sure, come here." Kelly rode up in her wheelchair, looked in her father's computer. It was a mess. She immediately told him where it needed fixing first thing. And then she looked at her father with a satisfied look. "Dad, I've told you several times, let me help you. Besides, I like it myself. Take me to you after the institute, and believe me, You will never have problems with the analytical department again. I see, Kelly. I just wanted to save myself the trouble. You're a smart girl, and everything I'm doing right now is for you. I actually wanted to send you overseas to get some rest. Travel for work. You'll have time for that. But I'm watching you run things now. I feel like I need your help more than ever. I'm really glad you finally realized that. Now let's go to dinner. Not too hungry. They've been waiting for you for a long time. Come on, we're good. I'm pretty hungry myself. But you saw it. I had to figure out what they'd done to me. Dad, they don't check your data at all. That's a big mistake in analytics. But I've already realized that. Then you're gonna take over the department because I've got enough work to do. I'll send the data to your laptop for now. But when you graduate, you come straight to me. I'll even set up an office for you. I'll even have an office set up for you. Okay, Dad, now go to the kitchen. Or our Aunt Clara will be nagging again, because dinner is probably already cold. You're right, that's how our Aunt Clara is. It's best not to mess with her. But I think you stood up for your father, because I'm the one who's going to get the blame. Good. I have a way with her. I know how to calm down our angry Aunt Clara. What about us? You'll see. They walked to the living room, where the table had long since been set. For as long as Kelly could remember. They always ate dinner in the living room. It was their family's custom. In fact, she had nothing against it. "We're waiting for dinner," shouted the father, and looked at his daughter cheerfully. Soon, Slaga came in, grumbling that she had cooked everything a long time ago. Everything had cooled down long ago, and she didn't get up to reheat her masterpieces 20 times. "It's all your fault, Robert. Your job comes first. What am I supposed to do? I work hard. I cook, and you don't care about my labor. You're about to have a warming meal. You're pretty tasty. I'm always talking about what I've been pulling." This time I held up my dad, but I proved to him that in his job I'm indispensable. He's agreed to let me run his analytics department. So you can be happy for me. Kelly, so you're gonna work with your dad now, just like you wanted. Oh, that's great. Now, without further ado, let's eat dinner. Let's make sure everyone eats. I worked so hard tonight. I think it's delicious. You always make everything delicious. I promise my daughter, and I won't be late for dinner like this again. Okay, I believe you. Kelly, if you say it, it means it. The father looked meaningfully at his daughter, and she smiled her beautiful smile. How much like her mom was she? Especially when she smiled like that. How are things going at the institute? You're not seeing anyone. I've just noticed you've been different lately. Did something happen to you? No, I'm fine. I just really wanted to work for you, you know. I'm almost done with school. And then it just felt like there was no point. And then you were always against me working with you. I was really depressed about it. And I felt like you didn't need me. Don't be silly. But how could I not need you? I just wanted you to get some rest. Well, I've explained. But if my daughter wants to work, I'm happy to do it. So don't worry, it's fine. While you're still getting things done, like I said, I'll get your office ready so you're comfortable, but you're welcome there. I look forward to seeing you with great pleasure. Robert was pleased. He saw that he couldn't do without his daughter's help, but I didn't think his daughter would want to work for his company. After all, she's disabled. He was always afraid for her. It was especially scary to see how people looked at her with some pity, some anger. And his heart always jumped out in anger. But now he saw that his daughter had grown up, that she herself perfectly coped with all the hardships. And the fact that she is constantly in a wheelchair does not bother her at all. Besides, as she recently told him that the strength is not in the legs, but in the head, she's right. The next day, he gave the order to prepare the office next to his office. Many people began to murmur, realizing that he was doing all this for his daughter. Robert's secretary at lunchtime told her friends in HR in confidence, "Now we're gonna have a handicapped person working with us. Her daddy's going to arrange everything for her. Why do we need her here to feel sorry for her? You shouldn't say that, Vodka. Kelly is a beautiful girl, and she's very smart. So enough with the slander and the talk. You better get on with your business. Besides, if your boss finds out, you won't last long. He adores his daughter. It's not her fault. What happened? It's nobody's fault. Besides, the girl grew up without her mother, who died in that unfortunate accident. So why feel sorry for her? She has everything. They don't need anything. Besides, she's used to it. She's probably a rich girl with a daddy like that. Plus, she's handicapped. I imagine Anna's all out of sorts and said stop talking, and then you're on your own. If you don't stop talking, you'll be out of a job. You got me. Kelly sat on the porch of the institute, waiting for her friend Christina. They had been friends since first grade. She told her father about her then. He, of course, made inquiries, said that her friend's family was good, that her father was an engineer and her mother was a pediatrician. Christina's father was having a little trouble at work at the time, and Robert helped him. This brought the two girls very close together, and they were now going out together all the time. Kelly also wanted her father to take her friend to work with him, but she didn't know how to convince him. Kelly, you've been waiting a long time. Sorry, I was just picking up my notes from Bobrov. I'm sick of taking them into eternity and then having to run after them. I need to get them back. Why are you so happy? Did something happen? Yeah, I talked to my dad yesterday, and he wants me to work with him. I finally talked him into it. I haven't talked about me yet, but I think we'll find something for you. Maybe you shouldn't, Kelly. What? What if I can't handle it? And there's a lot of things we're grateful to you for. If it wasn't for you, I might have been expelled my sophomore year. You realize I'm weak in a lot of subjects. You're the smart one. I'm mediocre. My mom said it was a miracle I got in. I should have gone into teaching. That's my limit. Don't be silly. Your mom can be wrong sometimes. She's a doctor, but she doesn't believe in you. And that's her fault. Okay, Christina, let's go home. Aunt Clara's baking fascinated today. She told me to make sure you came. And I'd love to. But my mom's gonna be mad again. She always does. When I praise Aunt Clara's food, she starts nagging, saying that of course, if she had as much time as your nut, she'd make a masterpiece. But Dad and I know our mom can't cook at all. I see you guys are having fun. I think if my mom were alive, we'd have the same thing. Kelly, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to upset you. I mean, you know, I'm telling you about my family, and you're sad. But I'm not being mean. I know it's okay. It's just something I said. Did you go to Christopher the driver? He's waiting for us. Listen, Kelly, this Christopher of yours, he's single. I keep meaning to ask you, but I keep forgetting. He's not. Why do you want to know? Do you like him? I like him a lot. I like guys like that a lot. I mean, look at him, like he's on the cover of a magazine. I didn't know you liked guys like that. Do you want me to introduce you guys to him? Oh no, that's okay. Wouldn't you look at someone like me? You're being modest again. Chidge. Christina, you knew you had very low self-esteem. You can't do that. You need to rethink that. They got in the car and drove to Kelly's house. Christopher, then only Christina needs a ride back home. She lives far away. That way we can study for exams together. Study late. What do you say, Kelly? I'll do it. I'll drive her. Does he call you by your middle name? Did Christina giggle? That's what Daddy requires. The girls didn't speak again on the road. Kelly thought about what Christina had told her. She didn't know how to introduce her to Christopher, and thought that her friend would probably have a chance at that when he took her back home. It was just that Kelly herself had never had a boyfriend, and she didn't know how to get acquainted at all. She decided for herself that she was going to be alone, because she really realized that no healthy guy would want to be crippled. There were certainly some guys at the institute who picked on her, but she could see that their interest was not in her, but rather in her father. Miranda glanced at the time and frowned. The whole sun was late again, And she understood the reason why he was with his girlfriend Lisa again, and what he found in her that he just couldn't break up. It's not right. It's not his time. It was a shame that no matter how she explained it to her son, he didn't listen to her at all. Once again, he should have been home long ago, but he was still gone. Finally, she heard the front door slam. The son threw his keys on the nightstand and started to develop. "Hi, Mom. Why are you so glum? And you're still asking? We agreed with you that you after the institute immediately go home. But I see you don't care about my requests. You were with your Lisa again. Mom, I told you that I love her and that she's the girl I want. I thought you agreed with me. And we agreed that I would do whatever you told me to do. But she would always be there for me. You understand, son, the minute you start courting Kelly, her father's gonna start making inquiries about you. He's gonna find out everything. And that's where we're gonna get in the way. So think again. Talk to her and tell her that you need to break up for a while. But she has to understand. Okay, Mom, I'll talk to her. But you realize it's not as simple as telling her I have to marry another woman. How can I tell her it's all about the money? She wouldn't understand. She'll understand perfectly well. I've seen her, and I know this type of person. She'll do anything for money. So you can tell her. You'll see she'll agree to anything. Just don't tell her the truth. You can't trust women. Just say that you have to hit on a rich girl just to get a good position. Because if you tell the truth, everything will fall apart. Robert will be reported immediately, and we'll be left with a broken trough. And do you realize then that we'll lose time? Smart boy, and not only smart, but very handsome. So I think you can do it. The important thing is that Lisa doesn't get in your way. So weigh everything and think about what's more important to you. And also think that you're going to have a lot of Lisas. There was no Stephen. What to say to his mother? He himself had long dreamed of having a car. He liked the branded things he saw in the store that were out of his reach. Besides, who doesn't want to live rich? Even if it means marrying a coworker. Mom's so sure this girl will even want to talk to him. What if she has a boyfriend? What if she's happy? Here I am with my suggestions. I checked. Son, he's single. But you're right, Kelly. The girl's very smart, so don't expect her to jump into your arms right away. You think it's that simple. No. My dear, you're gonna have to woo her. And you're gonna have to woo her hard. You know what I mean? Because she's not going to throw herself at you right away without even thinking about it. So you're saying she might refuse me? Naturally. You're not as smart as I thought you'd be. You think if something's wrong with her, she should come running to you. No, she's been smartly provided for since she was a child, never denied anything. It comes up, you'll believe it, she won't even pay attention to you. It's all up to you. If you want her to fall in love with you, you'll do whatever it takes. Well, you know what I mean. Because I've done everything for you. Now it's your turn. And please don't upset me. He didn't see that coming. For some reason, in his fantasy, everything was so simple. He sees Kelly, she sees him, and she agrees to marry him. And then he goes back to living the life he wants. But it's not that simple. Like his mom just told him, he didn't say anything. He went to his room to think for a while. First of all, he decided to take a closer look at Kelly. His mother had told him about her a long time ago, but he always thought it was nothing. But his studies were coming to an end, and that meant his mother's plan had to be put into action. He opened his laptop to look at the pictures of Robert and Kelly. He was very surprised that she turned out to be quite a nice girl with a very beautiful and gentle smile. For some reason before, when he heard about her, he thought she must be very ugly. He looked online at her pictures and thought it wasn't all bad. She's pretty and seems very naive, so it wouldn't be hard for him to get to know her better. Plus, he'll know what she likes and how to approach her. Mom's right about Lisa. You have to break up with her for this kind of thing, so she doesn't screw things up later. He regretted telling her about her plans, but he was smart enough not to go into details, and he has to have a serious talk with her tomorrow. But he still needed an approach to her that he couldn't think of. He went to Lisa's page to admire his girlfriend. when he saw that she had pictures of their mutual friend John. He didn't like that very much. He decided that this would be the reason for their breakup. In the evening, when he sat down to have dinner with his mother, he saw that she was waiting for a response from him. "I understand everything. Tomorrow I'm breaking up with Tanya. Believe me, everything you've done for me won't go to waste. So you can count on me." "Thank you, son. I knew you were a smart boy. Believe me, I'm not getting any younger every year. And that's why I want to live a normal life, thinking you'll do well." The next day at the institute, a happy Lisa came up to Stephen to hug him and, as usual, then dip him on the cheek. But he dodged, grabbed her hand, and took her aside. "Why didn't you tell me that when you talked to John? I realize we are friends, but I didn't think his picture would be on your social media page. Why didn't you tell me? So it's just a photo. Stephen, what's wrong with you? Would you like it if I had a picture of your friend? What would you say to me then?" "Stephen, but I didn't think it would make you so angry. I don't even remember when I had it there. But I felt awful yesterday when I saw it there. I also felt bad when I saw your heart emoticons. How do you explain that? That's how the press makes jokes before. You know, John. And believe me, I didn't even pay attention to it. I don't believe you. You're obviously enjoying this. So just so you know, I don't like it at all. You got me." They nodded anxiously, glancing at Stephen. He needed her to be completely oblivious to that recent conversation when he had told her that his mother wanted to get him a good job. Just at that moment, John walked up to them and playfully pinched Lisa's waist. It was just what was needed. Stephen looked at Lisa with a frown. He didn't say hello to his friend, but silently turned and walked away. He smiled to himself, realizing that it had turned out even better than he had intended. John caught up with him, grabbed his elbow, and said, "What are you doing, friend? I just did it without a second thought. Believe me, I would never come between you and Lisa. There she is crying. Why don't you explain what happened? I don't have to. So you stay out of it. Is that how you're raising her or what? Tell me honestly, are you my friend or not? Of course I'm your friend. I'm always there for you, and you know it. Now, Lisa cheated on me, and you'd better stay out of it." "Got it. How did Lisa cheat on you?" "There's no such thing." "What's the matter, Stephen?" "It's smudging. So let her suffer a little. It's good for her. Don't feel sorry for her. I'm afraid she's gonna turn on you. She's not as saintly as I thought she was. They change guys like gloves. I got proof. But I'm not gonna get involved in this mess. So you're just gonna have to take my word for it. I wasn't expecting that." "All right. Well, whatever you say, I'm always on your side. How upset are you? What do you think? We've been together for so many years. It's a shame to know your girlfriend's not faithful to you. I'm right. It's not nice. Well, that's okay. I'm looking at the world in a more cheerful way. We'll graduate soon. We'll go to work, and everything will be fine. There will be more beautiful girls." "I'm right." Stephen nodded, and they went to their classes. True, he felt a little bad at heart that he had done that to Lisa. But he had no other choice. Now he realized that his mother was right about many things, and he would have a lot of Lisas like that. And now he had to get ready to study. There wasn't much left. The first day of work at Robert and Stephen's company. He didn't expect such a big deal. Only now he realized how rich this man was. Very smart. Mom is right, of course. If he married Kelly, he would have everything. But he also realized that it wouldn't be so easy to marry Kelly. It's all in his head, as easy and simple as he thought it would be. Now he'd seen the seriousness of it, realized it wasn't that easy. Robert wouldn't give up his daughter. He would still have to fight for her, but he was not afraid of that, because he understood perfectly well that as soon as he became his son-in-law, all doors would open for him. That's exactly what he needed Mom to do. I didn't see that one coming, of course. Listen, thank you so much for getting me this job. I wouldn't have gotten a job there on my own. I'm thrilled. Now I know exactly what you mean. Well, Mom's got good advice. Listen to me carefully, son. It's all up to you now. Work hard to get noticed. Then another piece of good news. His daughter will work there too. I mean at this company. So that makes your job easier. But it's up to you. She'll be working there too. What's she gonna do? I don't know yet. A friend of mine told me today. The office is ready for her. I already know who she'll be working there. In the meantime, why don't you mind your own business? I hope it works out for you. It's working, really. Absorbed Stephen. He loved what he was doing. Plus, he was noticed as an excellent worker, and within 3 months he was promoted. Of course, not as big as he would have liked, but in 3 months to rise, even if only one step, it was already a result. You're good, son. You're a smart boy. I'm glad I raised a son like you. We're gonna make it. Did you find out about Kelly's? 'Cause I've been working there a long time, but I've never seen it. Have you ever seen Robert? No, not yet. He doesn't come into our offices there. And there's nothing for us to do in his office. So we're just going about our business. That's right. His daughter is with him all the time. So it's up to you. Boy, you try and you will succeed. And Stephen tried. He did everything he could to get one more step up to where the big money of the connection was, where he could finally feel like a more important person. Kelly arrived home, and the first thing she did was head to her father's office. She wanted to talk to him about her friend who would also like to get a job. Christina had called her in the evening and told her that her mom was sick, that she needed a large sum of money. But she can't do anything because where she works, the pay is very low, and she probably can't afford the medicine. Dad, I can come in. It's okay. No, daughter, you know you never bother me. I see something's wrong. Trouble at work. No, I'm fine there. It's something else. Remember Christina, who we've been friends with since college? Well, she's got family problems. I'd really like to help her, but I need money. A job or both. You can hear me out. So tell me, my aunt is very sick. She needs medicine. You know very well how expensive it all is. Christina and my father are working, but they don't have enough. They need treatment now, so I'm offering to help with money and work. She's a smart girl. Trust me, she can handle it. Let's help them, Dad. How can I say no to you? I'll talk to my deputy tomorrow. I think he'll take her in, get her a job. But don't worry about the money. I'll wire the money to her account. Just give me her card number and the amount. So don't worry about your mom. We'll help her. Kelly looked at her father with pride. She always liked how he was quick to solve problems. She had always dreamed that if she ever fell in love with a man, he would have to be like her father. Thanks, Daddy. I'll call her right away. Kelly dialed Christina's number and was very happy when she answered right away. So, send me your card number and the amount you need for your mom's treatment. Tomorrow come to our company and your father will give you a job there. Everything will be fine. Don't worry. Well, it's not right. When I told you about this, I didn't mean for you to help me with money. Believe me, I'm not friends with you for money, but only because it's a very good person and a great friend. Christina, don't worry. I know how you feel about me. I know you're not friends with me because my last name is Robert. So why can't I help you? Just because I can. I think if you were me, you'd do the same thing. Wouldn't you? Thank you, Kelly. You're the most wonderful friend I've ever had on Cindy. I'll get my mother's meds today, and I'll come to your company tomorrow. Believe me, I will do everything I can not to let you down. I'll do my best. A new girl came to the company. Stephen looked at her with interest, and also thought that she wasn't bad with herself, and that he wouldn't mind hitting on her. But then a coworker whispered to him that this very girl, a close friend of Kelly, she's her friend. I never would have guessed that, because I always thought that people like Kelly had unusual friends. She's just a simple girl, and she's cute too. They've been together since college. I'm having some problems in my family. So Kelly hustled up, told her father to bring her here. Well, it's up to them, but be careful with her. And there's no guarantee she won't rat you out to her bosses. You know what I mean. She's on the outs with them. But Stephen had other plans, and he decided to put those plans into action. Hi, my name's Stephen. I see you're new here. So if you have any problems, I'd love to help you out. You would. It seems like nobody cares about anybody here. And they look at me like I'm an enemy of the people. To be honest with you, he doesn't really like people who come in through favors. We were told you were the prodigy of our boss's daughter. That's why you're being treated like this right away. If you're nice to everyone, you won't see it go away anytime soon. Okay, thank you so much for explaining. Although Kelly did warn me that I would be treated this way at first. She's very smart. And when she says something, she's always right. How long have you two been friends? We met in college and have been inseparable ever since. I'll never forget the first time I saw her. She was so confused, and no wonder. People really looked down on her, like they'd never seen a person in a wheelchair before in their life. I didn't know who she was then, and I just felt sorry for her. Well, how do you walk? I drove her around. She was happy to accept my help. She's a lovely person. She doesn't look like the daughter of rich parents, and that's what I liked about her right away. She has a humanity that a lot of healthy people don't have. I read somewhere that disabled people are evil because they don't look like normal people, but Kelly proved otherwise. I've never met anyone so bright. Okay, I'm probably just repeating myself. It's just that I really do love her a lot. Now I have to get to work. If there's a problem, I know I can come to you, Stephen. Stephen nodded, went to his workstation. He was interested in their conversation. He was learning a lot about Kelly again. Although the fact that she was a kind and smart girl, he had heard many times before. When lunch came, Stephen stopped by Christina's to invite her in and in between to show her the dining room that was in the building. And it was made especially for the employees. The food there is excellent. I've never had food like this in a restaurant. Come on, I'll show you where it is. I'm sorry, Stephen, but I'm going up to Kelly's. She's so busy working sometimes, she forgets to eat, which, unfortunately, is not normal. So I'll try to get her to eat. If I do, I'll meet you in the cafeteria. Stephen left, and Christina folded neatly all the papers in order on the desk and went to Kelly. Her office was next to her father's. And in fact, the regular employees did not go up there unnecessarily. She knocked on the door and heard Kelly's voice. Kelly, hi. It's me. Let's go win. I'm starving. Besides, I've been told about your canteen so much that if we don't go, I'll starve to death. It's in your office. No, you don't want to do that. Of course we're going. I just haven't been going alone. I'd love to go with you, my friend. Tell me about your new place. No one's hurting you. Everything's fine. Don't worry about me. Besides, you know I'll never let anyone hurt me. I can always stand up for myself. I met this guy. Well, actually, he came up to me, offered to help me, said that if I do not understand something, I can safely turn to him. He's very handsome, by the way. Let me show him to you. I'm glad you're doing well. And I'd be really happy if you could make something work with this guy. Not a chance. Guys like them will never look at me. He'd rather look at you. Don't be silly. I've told you 100 times. You're a very pretty girl, so stop underestimating yourself. Stephen saw them as soon as they entered the dining room. Christina gestured Kelly over to the table in a familiar gesture. In doing so, she pushed back a chair to make her friend comfortable. The dining room became very quiet. Everyone looked only at Kelly. She, on the other hand, paid no attention to anyone. Stephen was also looking at her for the first time, and to give him credit, he liked her in person. She was really a very beautiful girl. Against her background, Christina looked like a pale moth. The friends were talking quietly about something, not paying attention to anyone. The waiter immediately ran up to him and immediately took the order. Christina was quietly telling Kelly something, and then she turned and looked at him with her big blue eyes. He realized that Christina must have been telling her about him at the moment. He smiled quietly and nodded. Kelly nodded back at him and looked away. Christina smiled and listened to what Kelly told her, then turned to Stephen and made an inviting gesture. Stephen didn't refuse. Every opportunity to get close to Kelly was important to him now. He grabbed his tray with his order and walked over to them. "Hello, Kelly Robert. It's a pleasure to meet you. My name is Stephen, but I think Christina already told you that. You can just go ahead." "Kelly is a pleasure, Stephen, and I'm glad you didn't leave my friend alone. I know how newcomers are treated here, so thank you again for your support. Also, you didn't know who Christina was or who I was. That tells me you're a kind, sensitive person." Stephen didn't bother to tell Kelly that as soon as Christina walked into the office, he had already been told all about her. Why dissuade him? Besides, Kelly's praise was very nice to him. "It's nothing. I didn't do anything wrong. Besides, Alice is a girl of character, and as it seemed to me, she doesn't need help or protection." The dinner passed in a friendly atmosphere. They talked quietly. And then when they finished, they agreed that now only 3 people would have lunch. When they got home, Stephen joyfully approached his mother and told her that he had met Kelly today. "How? Really? How did that happen?" "We had a new girl over. Turns out it was a friend of hers, and she introduced Kelly to me in the cafeteria today. Well, more like she introduced me to her. Whatever, Mom. Now she recognized me. And I recognized her. I don't think there's any rush. But I'm gonna take it slow." "Wrong, son. Just take your time. All in good time. Remember, you're gonna make it. You better tell me how arrogant she is." "Come on, Mom. She's a normal girl. It's, pretty cute. Not my type, of course, but I was actually pleasantly surprised. She's not a freak, and I think I can go after her now. There are some complications, though. She doesn't trust anyone, I think, because she realizes that she's handicapped and what a normal guy doesn't need. It's my job to prove to her that none of this is true, that it's just her speculation. I'm right. You're right, son. You're always right. Look at the situation. And most importantly, remember that you got to keep your eyes on her, thinking only of her, no other girls. I hope you didn't compliment that friend of hers, because I knowed you. She'll tell her Kelly, and then it's all gone. Don't worry, Mom, I did the right thing. I went over there just to help her. We had a conversation. Nothing too much. All I had with her was work. Besides, I didn't like her. She's kind of pale and not really my type either. So you don't have to worry too much about it." "Good, son. I'm glad you're a smart kid. I hope the ice is finally breaking. In a little while, you'll be the most powerful man in the world. In fact, who do you want to be?" But the key is patience. Stephen agreed with his mother. He would have to be very careful not to scare her off. But he knew he would succeed. It was not without reason that he had come to this for so long. Kelly was in her room. She had gone to bed early tonight because she was feeling a little under the weather. Not good with her for the first time. Her heart was cramping, and blood was spurting whether the hearth was the same or not. And it even seemed like she had a fever at first, but she knew her body well and saw that she didn't have a fever. What was happening to her? She didn't understand. This had never happened to her before, and it frightened her. The image of Stephen kept running through her mind. No matter what she did, he was always in her face. Had she fallen in love? No, it couldn't be. Not with her. They'd been talking for 2 months. Always the 3 of them. He, she, and Christina. True, in the evenings he wrote to her. They talked about different topics, and she realized that she was very interested in him, and as it seemed to her, he was interested in her. And yesterday he invited her to the park. She had been there a long time ago, as a child, when my father took me there. But she didn't like it there, because there were children looking at her, and she looked at them and envied the way they ran. Her father offered to take her for a ride too, but she refused. She didn't want everyone looking at her, and Stephen had offered to let her go. She didn't expect him to do that. Are you serious right now? Kelly, it sounds like I'm kidding. You're what? But you realize that I am. Kelly was going to say handicapped, but Stephen interrupted her. Oh, come on. This is the most beautiful girl in the world to me. You're beautiful, you're sweet, you're kind, you're very smart, and I really enjoy talking to you. So why can't I ask you out? And Kelly said yes. Her malaise must have been exacerbated by the fact that she was anxiously awaiting the results. Her father, as usual, never let anyone near his daughter. And if there were people near her, he would make inquiries about them. Kelly never said anything about the games, and if he did ask, she simply replied that they socialize as colleagues. She then told him that Christina had introduced them, and then when she was asked out and had to tell her father, because she couldn't just leave the house without him knowing. She remembers that then as a teenager she asked her father what was the purpose of this insurance. You see, daughter, I'm really worried about you, and I think you know that enough to understand what I'm doing. No, it's not enough for me. Remember when you once told me that we should always tell each other the truth? Well, now I see that you're lying to me. And then my father told me that the accident when her mom died and she became an invalid was faked. But he couldn't prove anything at the time. But after that, he guarded his daughter like the apple of his eye. So she had to tell her father about the date. He was surprised. He didn't say anything, just nodded. And she realized that Stephen would be scrutinizing. She resented that, of course. But on the other hand, she understood who they were, and she'd seen how people sometimes went crazy over money. She thought her father wouldn't come home this time, but she was glad when she heard the sound of a car pulling up. Soon he knocked on the door of her room. You're awake. I'm glad you waited for me, but don't keep me waiting. Can you please tell me what you found out about Stephen? Well, I didn't find out much. He has no father. His mother brought him up. He's never had a criminal record and has never been involved in anything bad. In general, a positive character, which, frankly, scares me a lot. But I guess the mom did her best. She didn't want her son to get involved in different stories. Actually, she did well, did the right thing. Studying at the institute, met with a girl, but then they broke up. As it turned out, he could not tolerate the fact that she cheated on him. But according to the girl, this never happened, and apparently she was slandered. At the moment works in my company, does not meet with anyone. Anyway, I've told you all about him in a nutshell. Enough. Kelly shrugged. What did she have to do with it? She be happy and don't know all that information about him. What do you think about all this, Dad? I'm allowed to go out with him. Do you want to? Kelly's daughter nodded and blushed. But I don't mind. He seems like a smart guy. He's good at his job. I think he might even get a promotion. He's young, but he's got a good head for the job. So you're not going alone. You'll have a guard with you. Got it. Who else is going? Christina and Stephen's friend. I think his name is John. I've got some information on his friend, but I don't think you're interested. By the way, he's been in a couple of bad situations, but it's no big deal. He seems like a regular guy to me, and I respect that kind of guy. I was like that myself when I was younger. But what about Stephen? I'm a little concerned, of course, but I don't mind having fun. Have a good weekend. Stephen looked at his watch and worried. They'd had a long talk with his mother today. He had told her that he had asked Kelly out on a date, but it was too soon to be happy. Of course, he needed Kelly's father's consent, so he waited with bated breath. As time went on, Kelly didn't call or write. He already thought that most likely her father found out something and forbade her to communicate with him. What should he do then? What to do? Had he lost everything? Maybe he's in a big hurry. Maybe he started this whole thing too soon. He probably should have waited a couple more months. He decided not to wait. So in his opinion, enough time had passed. What if this was the end of it? He chased all those bad thoughts out of his head as best he could, but they persisted. Suddenly, his phone beeped, and he realized it was a heart-stopping text message. He opened his phone and breathed a sigh of relief. Kelly, sorry it's late, but it's still on for tomorrow. He and Christina will drive themselves to the park. It was a victory. He rushed out of the room and ran to his mother. "What, son?" asked his mother anxiously, obviously having heard him rushing to her. "Mom, we did it. You'll see a little more, and we'll have a wedding. Now I'm sure of everything. I'm so glad, my darling. You'll do so well tomorrow. Please be most considerate and gallant. A first date always makes a lasting impression on a girl. Do you understand me? I'll do everything right. You know me." At 12 o'clock, John arrived at Stephen's house by car. His friend on the phone last night asked him to go out with him. "What does that have to do with me? Or can't you take a girl out on a date by yourself?" "Don't be ridiculous. She's not going out alone. She's going out with her friend. So please support me. Has our Stephen really fallen in love in his life? I haven't heard you talk me into it like that, have you? Well, tell me more about it. Who she is? She's so beautiful. John, you wouldn't understand me. And I'm not gonna say anything. Just tell me if you'll support me or not. But of course, when we don't support you, well, but for keeping quiet all this time. I resent you. I mean, you and I used to share everything. And then you got a girlfriend, and I still don't know anything. I didn't realize what happened to me at first. But that's beside the point. Listen, John, please, when you see her, please don't make any jokes. You got me. You're scaring me. Is there something wrong with her? You'll see tomorrow. Now, good night. See you tomorrow." And so they drove together in the car and didn't say a word. John saw that Stephen was thinking about something, but he didn't want to ask his friend anything. He must be really serious, because he had never seen him like this before. They pulled up to the park. John and Stephen got out of the car. There they are by that black car. I don't get it. Is she with security or something? Yeah, because I asked out the daughter of the man I work for. Robert, right? John, please don't make that face. It's not necessary right now. Besides, everybody's looking at us. She's gonna have a friend with her. So your job is to make her like you. Do you understand me? Because she's probably gonna have to go on dates with her first. They came over, and they said hello. John immediately noticed the beautiful girl in the wheelchair. She reminded him of a flower, just as beautiful, unwelcoming. Standing next to her was apparently her friend. They introduced themselves to each other and walked to the park. John Christina did not like her. He didn't like girls like that at all. He couldn't stand blondes. Kelly, on the other hand, was probably his type of brunette with beautiful blue eyes. It was so beautiful that when she looked at him, he was speechless because he couldn't take his eyes off her. "You girls are so quiet. It's not like we're in the park. It's like we're in some horrible place," said John cheerfully to lighten the mood. "It's just been so long since I've been in a public place that I don't even know how to act," Kelly said. "It's weird. Maybe I'm going to ask a stupid question, but I want to hear you say why you're a normal girl. You don't have anything that would turn people away from you. Or is there another reason?" Stephen pushed his friend to the side, showing him that he was prying into his own body. But Kelly still answered John, "Is it for you? I'm a normal person, but to a lot of people around me I'm not. They try to get around me and the other way around. It always feels like I'm a leper. This I met very often on my way and realized that it is better for me not to see it, so I tried not to go anywhere. Well, that's enough sadness. Let's have some fun. That's kind of what we came here for. Kelly, you've been on the Ferris wheel. You want a bird's eye view of the city. I haven't. How are we gonna do that? You're about to see it. John, go get your tickets. We're gonna show Kelly around." Kelly never had such a good time as the day they rode the Ferris wheel. Then Stephen took her on the carousel. She didn't agree to go on the other rides herself because she honestly admitted that she was scared because she had health problems. Then it was John's turn to ride with Christina. And Kelly and Stephen watched from the sidelines and ate ice cream. Kelly also remembered all the times Stephen would take her in his arms to put her on the merry-go-round or in the cab of the Ferris wheel. She couldn't explain how she felt at that moment. It felt really good. Kelly and Christina rode in the security car. John took Stephen home. "So how did you like Christina? Did you like the girl?" "But you know very well she's not my type." "But I liked today. The girls are very interesting, especially Kelly. I thought there was no one like her in the world anymore." "That's with the brakes. She's my girlfriend. You get it, you get it. I'm not gonna beat her off just by reasoning with her. Although, believe me, if I'd met her sooner, you wouldn't have a chance." "What makes you say that?" "I can tell she likes me." John didn't say anything. As he dropped Stephen off outside the house and drove to his house, his thoughts returned again to Kelly. He really liked this girl, but he could see that she only had eyes for Stephen. He didn't mind, and he was even happy for his friend. Just didn't like the whole thing. Be that as it may, and Stephen he had known for quite some time, and realized that he would never marry someone like Kelly. Besides, he would never even socialize with such people. And here he was, right here, he wouldn't leave her side. And that was very alarming. Stephen realized he couldn't wait any longer. He'd been seeing Kelly for 3 months now, and he was getting bored with it. He needed more of what he'd been going for all along. And his mom was getting impatient, saying it was probably time to propose, or someone else would show up. And then they'd steal her away from Stephen. And he didn't want that. So he decided it was time to take drastic measures. So he invited her to a restaurant. After that meeting in the park, Stephen was reassigned. He started earning more money and was finally able to buy a car. Now he drove Kelly everywhere by himself, and they didn't take John or Christina with them. So he called Kelly today and told her that he had a serious conversation with her and that he was taking her to a restaurant. "I don't like those phrases. It's scary," Kelly replied quietly as she listened to Stephen. "Don't be scared. It's okay. I just missed you. That's why I said that. Don't worry. I beg you." "Well, okay then. Tonight I'll what?" "Before the date, my mother and I went to the jewelry store to buy a ring for Kelly. They argued for a long time, but then they decided. And finally, the ring was in his pocket in a velvet box. Son, don't forget that even if she agrees, we have to ask for her father's hand in marriage. Because you know he's a serious man. So we need to impress him. If you can do that, you can imagine how you will fly. He will immediately move you to a higher place, because it is not proper for the husband of the daughter to engage in inappropriate activities. As far as I know, Kelly herself is head of analytics. Smart girl, my ass. Who'd have thought it? She's really smart, if only she wasn't a cripple. Doesn't make any difference to me, though. I don't like her. She's not my type, you know. I prefer blondes, not like her. Just my son. The main thing is that she doesn't realize you don't like her. If she does, it's all over. You know what I mean. I understand perfectly. Don't worry, I won't let you down. There's a reason I've been through so much, and I know there's no turning back." Christina was in Kelly's room and watched with burning eyes as her friend tried on her wedding dress. "Wow, that's gorgeous. You look beautiful in it. Who's the groom's date for the wedding?" "John." "John, of course. And you're on my side. How are things going with him, by the way?" It's not. He's made it very clear that I'm not his type. I really liked him a lot, though. I think I'm gonna give it another shot at your wedding. Maybe I'll get lucky. What do you think?" "Christina, but there's a lot of focus on him. I mean, there's plenty of other guys out there." "Well, he doesn't like you, that's fine. But he's not the only one. You know, it seems like everything, it seems like it's not. But sometimes, you're attracted to him. He's a really nice guy. When I'm with him, for some reason I always feel protected. I guess a girl needs that. It's just a shame our feelings aren't mutual. It makes me very sad. By the way, I've always wanted to ask you, where will you live after the wedding in this house?" "Dad said it's my house, and that's where I should stay." I actually agree with him. I'm very happy here. Stephen doesn't mind. He agrees. He said they like it very much too. "Yeah, it's really nice here. Are you going on a honeymoon after the wedding? Of course, my father's arranged something for us, but I don't know. I was told it was a surprise. Stephen seems to know, but he won't say anything. And I don't insist. It's better to be a surprise. Christina, I still think I'm dreaming. I always thought I'd never get married. I don't think I'd ever be noticed by any guy. And then there's Stephen, and he's so handsome. Come on, you're very handsome too. I mean, look at you. You're just stunning. Stephen saw that and fell in love. That's right. I really want you to be happy. Kelly looked at her friend, thinking that they would be happy with Stephen, and thought that nothing could interfere with their happiness. Stephen arrived home and went straight into the kitchen. He looked at his mother glumly but said nothing. Son, I see you've got something going on. You won't tell me. I'm fed up. I can't stand it. To tell you the truth, I can't look at my wife. I'm so sick of her, but I can't stand it. And she's so right, so smart, she makes me sick. You know, and I can't do anything. Unless it's with her, I'll lose everything. And I didn't work so hard to lose everything. What am I gonna do? Help me. Don't even think about divorce. Besides, Kelly's a beautiful girl. I don't understand what else you need. You have everything. You don't need anything. What do you need, son? I like another girl. I'm getting serious with her. You see, I love her. You see, I'm young, I'm handsome. Shouldn't I be happy? Why should I have to live with an invalid and suffer like this? Is that what you raised me for? You see, son, don't you feel bad? You're the richest man in the world now. You can afford anything you want, and because of your love, you'll lose everything. Do you understand? Just understand. Money doesn't come easy to anyone, and you just married a millionaire's daughter and still managed to complain. I see you've stopped thinking. Everything was fine, but you've gone off the rails. If your father-in-law finds out you're having an affair, he'll never forgive you. You know what I mean? And even here, I can't help you. I understand all that. So I came to you for advice. What do I do? What do I do? Miranda got up from the table and went to the window. She was silent for a long time, apparently thinking about something. Stephen looked at his mother and waited to see what she would finally say to him. I understand, and I share your feelings. To be honest, I haven't been lucky enough to be happy in my life. I don't want you to repeat my fate, but what I'm about to offer you is very serious. And think about whether you're capable of doing it for your own happiness. Mom, you know me. I'm always willing to go the extra mile if it's really worth it. All right. Chuckles, are you willing to wait a year to be a really happy person? A year? Why not a year? Why don't you tell me if you're willing to wait a year? I think so. If it makes me happy. Then listen carefully. It's been a long time since you and Kelly went on vacation. Besides, she's used to your luxurious life, so you suggest she go somewhere in the woods, in the country, where there's no civilization. For example, to live in a tent, to fish in the river. There's not much to do in nature. I think she'd like that. Besides, as far as I understand, with you she feels protected, so she'll go along with anything. So when you get there, you should take a good look around the area. See if there are people around, so that there are no witnesses. And then just throw her off a cliff or into the river, presenting it as an accident. Do you understand me? And the most important thing is that I don't say anything about this vacation right away. Just give her the idea that she would like to go to the nature, so that no one would guess anything. Stephen silence. He was thinking of making an accident for his wife, but he didn't know how. But his mother had explained it all so well that he knew he would do it. All he had to do was talk Kelly into it, because he knew she wasn't a nature lover. Stephen met up with John just before he left for vacation. They sat down in a cafe to talk for a while. But how are you doing? I haven't heard from you in a while. I'm fine. I just thought since you're a family man, you shouldn't be distracted. Oh, come on. I'm tired of being a family man. I'm exhausted. Oh, well, you wouldn't understand me anyway. You're a single man. Explain it to me. I just thought you liked Kelly, and now something's wrong. Don't worry about it. I'm just saying that. Listen, my wife and I are going on a camping trip. I want to teach her how to fish, how to live in a tent, and show her how good it is out there. We'll have a vacation together, and things will get better. I always thought you hated the outdoors. Besides, why go there with Kelly? You know, she's a little different from us. It would be hard on her. Only it's not my idea. It's hers, so you have to do it. You know, she's used to getting everything she wants. Now I'm her husband, and I do all her whims. John frowned, because he knew that Kelly was nothing like Stephen was describing her now, although he just maybe didn't know her enough. Or maybe she acts so incomprehensible to him. Although he had talked to Christina back then, when they were still on a date together. She was telling him about Kelly, and he'd heard nothing but good things about her. How kind, smart, fair. That's when he drew his conclusions about her. And he watched Kelly himself, and came to the same opinion that she's a wonderful person. And then he hears from Stephen not at all flattering comments, and what to think now he didn't know. Although, looking at his friend, he saw that he became some kind of wooden, angry. Everything irritated him, and he didn't like it at all. When you're going, I'll see you again. Yeah, if only at the end of the week. Because we're all set for next Monday. Let's move. John was fine with that. He hated not understanding things. He saw that his friend was nervous for some reason, and he didn't like it at all. And for some reason he felt uneasy, and he knew that this uneasiness had something to do with Kel. Then he decided to follow Stephen a little. The father looked at his daughter anxiously and did not share her optimism. You don't know what you're talking about, you nature two things are incompatible. I'm worried about you. Besides, we decided to go alone. What the hell is that? Dad, I didn't get it at first either, but as it turns out, it's not far from here. So don't worry about it. And it's connected. You're talking to me like I'm going to the jungle, but that's not where I'm going. Oh, I see. Why do you want to go to the wilderness? I don't know. I saw a movie with Stephen the other day. They were making soup, and he told me that he and his class used to go camping. And they made soup just like that, and that he would never forget the taste. So I wanted to. You know, I've never tasted anything like it. He went to his daughter and hugged her. It was true, his girl had not seen a lot of things in her life, and how happy he was for her now, seeing that she was living a full life. And he, in turn, would do anything for her just to make his daughter happy. John was already on his second day of driving around town for Stephen. He took a special day off. I don't know why he'd do that, but for some reason he had an uneasy feeling that Stephen was up to no good. By the end of the second day, he decided that he would not follow his friend anymore because he was only traveling for work. But by the evening, he saw what he probably expected to see. It shook him up pretty badly. He was glad that on Saturday they would meet again, and then he would ask him what he wanted after all. And if it was true, he'd better get it all out of his head before it was too late. Kelly happily gathered herself for this dreamy walk. Christina looked at her friend anxiously. I don't know why they had to go into the woods. I mean, really, Kelly, what's gotten into you? I'm sorry to say these things, but this isn't the city. It's hard for a man with legs, aren't you? I'm sorry again, but I'm really trying to understand you. It's no big deal. We'll take a romantic camping trip. Have you ever heard? I've never been outdoors, and I really want to. Plus, you're like my dad. What are you so worried about? You'd think I'd be leaving home hundreds of miles away. And this is right next door. Stephen showed me on the map that it's close to here. You can check it out for yourself. Yes? And then there's cell service. So call me every day, and I'll let you know how I'm doing. I know it's hard for Stephen to listen to me talk sometimes, so I'm gonna tell my impressions to myself. And Christina frowned. It seemed to her that when Kelly talked about Stephen, she became sad. She wanted to ask her friend if everything was normal in her family life, but she didn't, because she knew that if Kelly wanted to tell her something, she would have done it. John never got to meet Stephen. He said he had a lot of things to do and couldn't get out for meetings. And on Monday morning, he left with Kelly for the woods, and for some reason John didn't like this idea, though he couldn't understand it himself. Why? Kelly excitedly looked around at the birds that were hovering around her. There was some rustling, and she turned her head with delight, looking at them with interest. Stephen assembled the tent with a smile, watching his wife. "Stephen, what's that strange knocking?" "It's that, uncle. There are many of them. They are the sanitarians of the forest. If it weren't for them, many trees would be dead by now." "What's that cracking noise? Is it so strange? It doesn't sound like a rhinoceros. It's a grouse. There's a lot of them here too. It's a protected area, and all birds and animals are protected. And there are bears here." "There are, but they don't come here. We're not in the middle of a protected area after all. I know we can't take any risks, but this is perfect. So don't worry. There won't be any animals attacking." When night fell, Kelly couldn't sleep for a long time. She tried to lie down, but she realized that wasn't the point. She was constantly distracted by some rustling, some fussing. She was a little scared. But then she looked at Stephen, who had been asleep for a long time, and calmed down. If her husband was calm, then she needn't worry at all. And toward morning, when she finally fell asleep, she had a strange dream. Her husband was pushing her into the abyss and smiling at her. She couldn't believe what was happening. Then, as she began to fall, she woke up screaming. Stephen looked into the tent and smiled. "Finally, I thought I had you sleeping all day. You know how people are like that when they get to the countryside. They want to sleep. My mom used to tell me she had a friend like that. It was impossible to go out with her. She'd lie down and sleep. That's what the fresh air did to her. How are you feeling?" "I'm fine. You look a little pale. I just had a bad dream. You know, I was really scared. It's just the new place has got to you. All the excitement, the noise. You're not rested. I had a stupid dream too." Kelly washed his face in a very unpleasant way. "I seem to remember the whole dream, and it felt like it was real." She saw it so clearly. It was very unpleasant. "I made some coffee and we went fishing. I found a beautiful spot. You'll love watching me fish." They had breakfast, and then Stephen took the fishing rods and rolled the baby carriage. Kelly to the river. She could hear her because there was a noise coming from there. Apparently the river was fast, but Kelly couldn't see it from behind the trees. Besides, she couldn't swim, and she didn't like water at all. She had always had a fear of water. Soon the trees parted, and she saw the river, not very wide but still fast. They found themselves on a platform that ended in a cliff. She was frightened and looked at Stephen. "So you're afraid your baby carriage will roll? Don't worry. I've got it all figured out. I'll put it where you can see me fishing and not get hurt." Kelly smiled and felt a little calmer. She began to admire nature again and look around. Suddenly, she thought she saw someone hiding in the distance. She could have sworn that she could even feel the eyes on her. But then she thought that it was probably her imagination playing tricks on her after the night. And then carefully, looking again at the spot, she saw nothing else. Stephen cast the rod, and she began to watch with interest. Soon he caught the first fish. She didn't know what the fish was called, but she didn't care. She watched it with delight as her husband placed it near the stroller. Then he cast the rod again and caught a small fish again. She was having fun. Kelly was oblivious to everything. Watching the fishing for the third time, she caught a big fish, and she saw that her husband was having a hard time pulling it out. "Mash, I need a net. I can't get it out this way. Help me. What should I do?" "Just take the net. It's not far from you, and give it to me. Don't be afraid of anything. There's no tablecloth down there. I'm watching you." Kelly quickly picked up the net and wheeled the wheelchair over to her husband to hand it to him. But then she saw Stephen put down the rod and turn toward her. It was as if time had slowed down for her. She didn't realize what he was doing, and he just took her by the stroller, pulled her up to him, and looked into the classrooms. "But what is it, sweetheart? It's time for you and me to say goodbye. If you only knew how bored I am with you. I want to live my life. You know, love who I want. I never even liked you. I married you for your money. Well, now it's goodbye. It's over. I'm finally rid of you." Kelly looked at Stephen in horror, remembering her dream. But how? How is this possible? He was her husband, her favorite person, the one she was happy with. And he was unhappy with her. So he was faking it. But what does it matter? What is she thinking? She's going to die anyway. She can't save herself in water like this. She can't swim. Besides, half her body doesn't work, and she can't do anything. And that's when Stephen pushed her down. The last thing she saw was him smiling. Robert couldn't find a place to go. Rescuers had been working for the third day, but Kelly's body had not yet been found. "Believe me, we'll do what we can, but it's possible she was carried away much faster than we think, and we need to widen the search. Anything could have happened. Maybe she got sucked into some kind of whirlpool. Or is she lying on the bottom right now? Get the right divers. Get the right divers. Get whoever you want. My daughter. Find her. I'll pay you. Only, please, my children, her." He looked at his son-in-law, who walked with a pale face. He felt sorry for him. After all, the first thing he had done was to attack him without realizing what he was doing. But Stephen stoically endured everything, realizing what a grief it was. Besides, he himself rushed after her, only he could not understand where she had gone. They found the baby carriage not far from where they were fishing. But Kelly's body was gone. John drove over to Christina's house to talk to her. She happily came out to him. "I really don't know what it's about. Hi, Christina. Long time no see. How are you doing? Everything okay? John, what brings you here? I need to talk to you. Listen, you were at Kelly's the other night. Before they went on that camping trip, right? Yeah, and you didn't notice anything weird? I mean, maybe Kelly was scared or sad. No, everything was fine. She was happy and so excited to go on a nature trip. And then this happened. I still can't believe it. I feel sorry for Robert. He's been so down since his daughter died. He's not like himself. Why do you ask? It just came to me. I'm still in shock myself. You're right. But wait, I did think Kelly was hiding something from me. And it's about Stephen. I don't know why, but I felt like I didn't have to ask her anything because I knew my friend so well. If she doesn't want to talk, there's no way she'll say anything. I thought I'd talk to her after the trip. And you see how it turned out." John nodded. In fact, that was all he wanted to hear. He got into the car as he saw that he had a missed call on his phone. Looking at the screen, he saw that Stephen was calling him. It had been a long time since they had talked. He didn't insist, realizing that he didn't really care about him right now. "Stephen, hi. You called me, but where have you been? Friend, I've been waiting for you to call. But you've completely forgotten about me. I just didn't think you cared about me. You can't stop grieving, though. But what's happened is that I'm going to die of sadness. We're all mortal. Today we are someone else tomorrow, vice versa. So you have to live and enjoy every day. Listen, let's go to a restaurant tonight. I'm sick of everything. I want to relax a little. Okay, let's do it. What time? Let's make it 6 o'clock. I don't have anything to do. I'm afraid I won't have time. I could go out of town for work. Let's make it 8. I think I'll be done by then." John wondered why Stephen suddenly wanted to go to a restaurant. If it were him, he'd probably be pining for Kelly. And nothing in his life would make him happy anymore. Stephen's doing fine. He moved on. He didn't care about anything else. He was free. He didn't get home until 8 o'clock, as he'd hoped. He barely made it home in time to shower and change. At exactly 8 o'clock, he pulled up to the restaurant Stephen had told him. Someone was sitting at a table drinking cognac. I was afraid you weren't coming. I called your phone again, but it was unavailable. I told you I went to the country, and there's no reception there. It was just a work thing. We're building a small factory there, so I have to go there all the time to check what's going on. Realizing you don't have a good job, I'll get you a job at our company. My father-in-law will do everything for me. All I have to say is you'll make a lot of money. Besides, I'm gonna get it all soon. Kelly, my girlfriend's smart. She even left a will. And I'm the full owner of her stock, her share of the company. So I'm a rich man, and I put in a good word for you. Besides, I need my own people in the company. I'm tired of dealing with my father-in-law's men. It's time for me to get my own people. Not yet. I've got 6 more months to go, but I think I can do it. But what about you? Are you in? I'll think about my offer, but I'll give you an answer later, because I can't let down my boss, with whom we have a contract. When the construction is finished, we'll talk then. I think it'll be finished in 6 months. By then, I hope you haven't changed your mind about taking me in. I haven't changed my mind. You're my friend. If you knew, John, how sometimes I wish I could talk frankly, only I can't. And I have a lot to say. John could see that Stephen was a little drunk and decided to push him a little on the subject he was so interested in. Namely, what had happened on the cliff. He didn't believe it was an accident. You know me. You can trust me with anything. I'll always listen to you. I'll even give you advice if you need it. You see, I'm in love, and it's so hard not being together. I think about her all the time. I can't sleep. I can't eat without her. Can you tell me what to do? John frowned. He hadn't expected that from Stephen. I understand, Stephen, but you said yourself that you have to move on. Kelly's not coming back, and that's why. What's Kelly got to do with it? I never loved her. I only wanted her so I could live like this now, so I could be rich and not think about tomorrow. I'm talking about Sophia, As soon as I saw her, I fell in love with her. But my father-in-law's always on the lookout, so I've been seeing her on the sly and in secret. Now she wants me to marry her, and I have to keep mourning for another 6 months, but I'm afraid that doesn't suit her. And if she doesn't wait for me, what am I supposed to do? Then she's not your woman, and she doesn't love you. Cold, John replied. He felt uncomfortable sitting at the same table with a man like Stephen. He couldn't even understand when this had happened to him. He used to be a normal guy. And now what had he become? Stephen didn't seem to notice how John had changed. He kept ranting. And that father-in-law is always hanging around me. I'm sick of him, but I don't give a damn. I couldn't take care of my little girl. That's not my problem. You shouldn't have let us go to the country then. I'm sick of them all. You should know how much I hate them all. John didn't want to hear any more. He was disgusted. He got up and said that he had an urgent matter to solve. She opened the classrooms, not realizing where the body was. Everything hurt terribly. It felt like she had been ground through a meat grinder. She wanted to lift her head, but she couldn't. She closed her eyes again and fell into sleep. When she woke up again, she realized she was alone again. There was no one around, but she felt a little better herself, and she felt a soft warmth. She turned her head to see where she was. The house was clean. Pickett wasn't very cozy. The sun played bunnies on the floor and on the windowsill. White curtains fluttered in the wind, and the smell of wormwood wafted to her. She closed her eyes again. Could she be in heaven? When she's ready to stay here forever? She closed her eyes again when suddenly she heard footsteps on the porch. Someone was coming, and she didn't want to show that she'd come to her senses at first. To see for herself if she should trust this person or not. What if it was her husband? The memory of him made her chest ache again. She didn't understand how he could do that to her. It turned out to be very simple. He didn't love her. That's all. Someone was walking in the room. Then he came to her bed and leaned over. She couldn't stand it, opened her eyes and cried out. It was John. Kelly, just don't be afraid of me. I didn't hurt you. Kelly nodded. Tears rolled from her eyes. She didn't remember well what had happened to her then after the fall. She remembered well the cold blows and then being carried somewhere. Then she felt someone grab her. She saw it was John and lost consciousness. Then when she came to, she thought she'd dreamed it all up. But it turned out he had saved her. Then what should she do? He's a close friend of her husband's, so she doesn't have long to live. Soon he'll show up and finish the job, and she won't be able to do anything. She's helpless on this bed, plus her whole body still hurts so far, so she can't even move. John looked at her and gently wiped the tears from her cheeks. She closed her eyes again, but out of fear. Don't be afraid of me, Mash. I'm sorry it happened like that. I was late. Until the last, I didn't think Stephen was capable of such a thing. But to be honest, I felt something and followed you. Kelly opened her eyes and looked at John, so she wasn't imagining it. And she really felt followed. So it was you who was watching us on the fishing trip. Yeah, that was me. I'm sorry I was almost late, but it's okay. I managed to save you. I'm sorry. I didn't know what to do next. I mean, he wanted to kill you. And I still can't believe it. How long have I been here? Almost 3 weeks is a long time to recover. My grandmother lives here, and she's been treating you. We were really scared for you, and I told her that if things continued to get this bad, I would take you into town and tell your father. If you want, I can take you now. Dad's there. I don't want to go anywhere yet. I need to think about it. I know it's wrong, but I need to get my head together. Kelly has been living with her grandmother Vera for 6 months now, helping her with herbs, learning how to brew them properly. She was waiting now too. Grandmother was looking out the window. It was raining outside today. It had been raining since morning, and it was unclear whether it would go on all day or end soon. Then she remembered the meeting with her father and smiled. It had been a week since that conversation with John. She didn't want to see anyone was so depressed. She didn't want to live herself. Then she thought about her father and realized that it wasn't his fault, that he had always tried to do everything for her. She was just mocking him now. When John came again to see how she was doing, she told him to bring her father to her. But what better way to do it? From what I understand, you wouldn't want Stephen to find out. It's too soon for him to know I'm back from the dead. But you should tell your father. I don't want him jeopardizing his health for me. Then do this. I'll tell him how to get an appointment. As I recall, he was interested in some land he wanted to buy. You'll have to offer him a place. Tell him it's right for him. I'll give you the details in a moment. Adding that you don't need intermediaries, that he's the one who should see the place. He'll understand and go with you. Besides, he already knows you a little bit, and I think he won't resist. Just make sure he doesn't recognize Stephen. Okay, Kelly, I'll do as you say. And John, when you get to the place, I want you to prepare him a little bit, because I'm really worried about him, because I don't want him to get hurt. She'll never forget the look on his face when he saw her. The two of them cried and talked for a long time then. John and Grandma waited for them outside. And when they'd had enough, they sat down to tea together. I don't understand how you can wait so long. We have to catch him now and put him in jail. He wanted to kill you. I'm sorry, Dad, but that would be easy for him. And I want revenge. I'm not an evil man, but I can't forgive this. And you know very well how I felt about him. And he knew it. If he had told me the truth, that he wanted a divorce, that he just wanted more money, I would have given him everything. I wouldn't have been sorry. That's why I want to prepare a little bit too, like he's been preparing all this time. John, thank you so much for your daughter. If it wasn't for you, I don't know what would have happened to my little girl. How can I ever thank you? Why don't you join my company? That's the kind of guy I need out there. I'd love to work for you, Robert. I'm afraid I can't yet. Stephen will get the wrong idea. He'll start asking questions, and he might get suspicious. Let's talk about it after this is over. You're right. We'll talk about it after. Now we're going. Come on, daughter. Get ready. "Dad, I'm gonna stay here. It's better for everyone. Stephen doesn't live in our house now, but he can come anytime. Besides, I'll be seen by Aunt Clara, your guards, and there's a lot of people there. Even though they're loyal to you, they can still negotiate. So I'll stay here. And you can come and see me anytime." Robert didn't argue. He could see that his daughter was doing very well here. Besides, her grandmother said she was still in treatment, and it would be better for Kelly to stay here. So she's been delayed. It's been over 6 months, a little longer, and soon everything will be back to normal. She'll go back to her father. She'll be back at the company, working and living like nothing ever happened. But it won't be like before. She'll constantly think about what Stephen did to her. But it didn't bother her as much as it used to. She started thinking about John a lot. I really liked that guy, especially his attitude toward her. She began to see the difference between John and Stephen, realized how wrong she'd been. She had mistaken flirting for love. John really loved her, and it showed. Stephen arrived home, and the first thing he did was go into the kitchen. Mom was sitting there reading a magazine. She looked at her son and smiled. "Well, son, there is not much left, and soon there will be everything you have dreamed of for so long. And what's so overcast? It seems to me that you should rejoice, because the victory is ours. So I am. I'm not happy, though. You know, I feel like my father-in-law's been weird with me lately. The first time he was in mourning, I was doing all the work. And then all of a sudden, it's like he's gone. He won't let me do anything. And now he's giving the most important things not to me, but to his deputy. I thought I was his right-hand man. Now I don't know what's going on in the company. It's disturbing. It's really weird. What's he saying? You asked him about it, right? He doesn't say much. He barely talks to me. And the best part is he doesn't even mention his daughter. And he's having fun. I don't know what's going on. I don't know what's going on. It's probably a defensive reaction to what's going on. He realized that he lost his daughter, but naturally, it makes him feel very bad. Our body at such moments tries to put a protective block, and a person begins to live as if nothing had happened. It's okay. Just be patient. Soon half of the company will go to you, as he will have to reckon with you. The main thing is, son, you did it. You did the right thing. And I'm also here to see you about Sophia. I wanted to ask you how things are going over there. It's not good. I've got her so much money. I'm broke. I'm waiting for the inheritance to come to me. And I still don't know where we're putting it. You've got good taste, son. Well, it's up to you, of course, but be careful with her. It's not long before she's pantsless. John sadly realized that Kelly would be leaving his grandmother's tonight. That's right. It's time. Tomorrow, Stephen would go to the notary to sign the necessary papers and receive the inheritance. But that wasn't the point. It seemed to him that as soon as Kelly left for the city, a wall would grow between them. She wouldn't want to hang out with him anymore. After all, they were so good together. He saw it and felt it. Kiryusha, why are you so sad? Something happened. He looked at Kelly, wanted to say that no, but then remembered that they agreed to tell each other the truth. And it was only on the truth that they'd built this fragile relationship. I'm afraid of losing you. I feel like as soon as you cross the threshold and leave, you'll forget about me. John, what are you talking about? You saved my life. That's one thing. And second of all, I've gotten to know you over the past year. I know a certain kind of person, and believe me, I'm not gonna let you go that easily. I feel good with you. I really hope to continue our communication with you. Stephen drove to the notary's office. At the appointed time, he saw his father-in-law's car and grimaced. He thought that he had absolutely nothing to do here, but apparently he had to be present at the reading of the will. All right, let him be here, if it wouldn't interfere with anything. He has endured the mourning, and now he can go about his business and his life in peace. Robert was no one to him now. He was on his way to the building when he saw his friend John pull up. They hadn't spoken much lately, Stephen had called him, but he kept saying he was busy and couldn't meet him. "Hi, what are you doing here? I had some business to check out." "Why are you here?" "Well, it's my birthday. It's been a year, and I'm inheriting the estate that my untimely departed Janny left me. I propose to celebrate tonight at the restaurant. Are you coming to congratulate me?" "Probably not. It's a celebration without me. I think you'll find someone." "Who to celebrate with?" "Hey, did you get a girlfriend? 'Cause you weren't like this before. You were always hanging out with me. And now you're like a stranger." "You're right. I have a girlfriend. She and I are in love. And I really hope we get married soon. But you have to. You'll invite me to the wedding. You know, somehow, I don't think you'll have time for me. Besides, you're getting an inheritance, and that opens up a whole new set of prospects for you. So you won't have time for my wedding." "Well, you mean, invite me. Maybe I can make time for you." John did not answer, but walked silently forward and out of the door. Stephen looked after him, not understanding what had happened to his friend. He had seen the way he looked at him today and did not understand the reason. Then it became clear to him. John was just jealous of him. Understandably, he has to work all the time, when Stephen's life was going great, and now it would be even better. The notary didn't see him at the appointed time. He had to wait another half hour, but Stephen didn't care. There was no hurry now. Everything went as smoothly as possible. No one noticed anything. No one guessed anything, and he would wait. He waited a year, so now it's just a half hour for him. And finally, he was invited. He walked into the office with a smile and froze. First he saw her. She was sitting next to her father in his wheelchair, and she looked beautiful. It was Kelly, the living Kelly. Standing next to her was John. Stephen noticed that Kelly was holding his hand. He didn't realize what was happening. He thought at first that he was just going crazy with joy, or that he was just dreaming. And then he'd wake up, and it would all go away. It's not gonna happen. And he'd have everything just the way he wanted it. The cops came up to him, cuffed his hands. They talked about how he was accused of killing his wife. But he wasn't interested in hearing it. It came to him that everything was gone, that he had not become a millionaire and the owner of the company, that now he would be shut down, and he would now be in jail. Then he looked at John. I remembered his words that he would not invite him to the wedding, that Stephen simply would not have time to come to them. So he knew everything. Well, why didn't he tell them? What do you care? He's still going to jail for killing his wife.
Subscribe and click the bell.
So, Jacob, can I congratulate you? The surgeon was being mocked by Nurse Maria. Your long-awaited vacation has finally arrived. At least I'll get a break from you. But don't make a despot out of me, the doctor said angrily. As if you do not work well with me, I can even say you want you and cherished. And you waved Jacob. That's for prevention. The surgical nurse laughed. Or you'll like it so much on vacation that you won't want to go back to work. And then what are you going to do? You're going to start hounding me. Yeah, you'll be chased. You won't go for a word in your pocket. Jacob said with annoyance in his voice. You only have to say one word, and you say 10 in return. That's why you're lucky to have me. Maria did not stop. I'm the one who yells at others. But for you, I'll tear anyone apart like an asshole. That's how the surgeon got up from the table. We will celebrate my vacation today. He looked questioningly at the nurse. Or like last time, we're going to clink tea. Or I don't want anything strong. The woman grimaced. I have to work tomorrow. You're the one who'll be sunbathing on the beach, Maria. Frankly speaking, I don't want to go anywhere. Sadly, replied the surgeon. I would be at home in bed for these 5 days. If I don't have to, I wouldn't go anywhere. And as for drinking, let's just have a beer. I don't want wine either. I don't want to be on an airplane with a sore head. Let's do it, nurse. I'll just run to the store and get some Baltica. And after the surgery, you and I will have about an hour off before the end of the shift. We'll celebrate your vacation with you. Maria quickly packed up and went out to the store. Jacob took care of his paperwork and completely immersed in routine work. What's your vacation? Did he raise his bottle of beer? 4. Nurse at the end of the shift. May your vacation be amazing. I wish you take your mind off everything and enjoy life a little. Anyway, Jacob, here's to you. And here's wishing you don't miss me. He raised his bottle. 2 dark glasses clinked against each other, and the man and the woman closed their eyes, either from pleasure or from fatigue. Jacob was a hereditary doctor. His parents and their ancestors had been very careful to protect the legacy of their lineage, which originated from a single surgeon who had come to work. Jacob's great-great-grandfather was one of the best surgeons of the time. But the difficult political environment led to the fact that even the doctor's grandfather traveled frequently. But despite the difficult times, the family managed to maintain its continuity, which made it possible to continue not only family traditions, but also to educate professional doctors. From the very childhood, Jacob knew that he would be a surgeon, and it was not because his father Ethan, who was a surgeon himself, insisted on it. It was as if the boy was born for this very purpose. He had never had a fear of blood, which is usually seen in children dogs with their paws tied up cats with poisoning and many other critters. This was for little Ethan, his real world, and he simply adored it. At school, the teenager now and then stopped the blood of his favorite classmates, or in the manifestation of sprains, when someone unluckily fell from a tree. Despite such a strange hobby, Ethan had many friends, and it sometimes embarrassed his parents. The latter always considered themselves true intellectuals, but their son was always socializing with the simplest people. Very often they had lunch and dinner with children from disadvantaged families. But when the guy entered medical school, everything in his life immediately changed. Time was barely enough for a little snack and sleep. So a lot of friends just drifted away. The only friend who still socialized with Ethan to this day was Max. He sat at the same desk with him for years in high school. Max went to Boston. Yes, he stayed there to work after graduation. He was an electronics engineer. Max would visit his parents in Chicago from time to time, and they would meet Ethan. The boy's parents thought that eventually their friendship would end. But to everyone's surprise, over the years it only became stronger. Therefore, each of them was aware of all the things that happened to each other. Jacob, despite his profession, was a sentimental and gentle person. He was very fond of poetry. He and his nurse Maria even had one interesting tradition. Before every operation, Jacob would recite a poem. Jacob was 32, and he was married to the beautiful Adriana. He had to spend a lot of effort to win her. The girl was completely unapproachable for the first few years. James was a longtime family friend and had 2 daughters. The first girl was from the first marriage, and in her there was nothing remarkable. But Adriana grew up to be more than just a beauty. She looked like a real model. Jacob was 4 years older than her. They hadn't seen much of Adriana growing up. Her father was a very rich man, so his daughters were rarely at home. But when Jacob met the girl on her birthday, he could not take his eyes off her. James decided to celebrate such an event at home. A lot of guests were invited. Among them was Ethan's family. Jacob was almost 24 at the time. He had 1 year of college and 2 years of graduate school left. Adriana had just returned from Europe, and the girl didn't want to stay at home. There were rumors that she had a boyfriend, but no one really knew about it. So Jacob wrote it off as gossip. The boy hadn't seen Adriana for a long time. Sometimes her older sister came to visit, but the girl herself had last seen Ethan about 5 years ago. "Oh my God," he exclaimed. "How beautiful is she?" Adriana is a goddess. Jacob kept his eyes on her the whole birthday. It was obvious that she didn't care about him at all. She was always talking to someone and laughing loudly. "Hello, Adriana." He came up to her. "Jacob, happy birthday. I wish you always remain as beautiful as a goddess." The girl looked at him with interest. She could not realize at first who it was. "Jacob, is it you?" She finally recognized the guy. "I'm sorry, I couldn't recognize you at first. You've changed a lot. You laughed too, Jacob. How are you doing?" "What are you doing?" Thanks. "I'm doing fine," the girl replied calmly. "My dad dragged me back, and I'm so used to USA. Did we have such a bad joke of a guy? What's there that isn't here? Everything, Adriana laughed. After talking to Adriana, I began to think about her all the time. She stayed in the USA until the end of the summer, so we often visited them, went for walks with the girl. What if you fell in love with a Russian guy? He asked her once. So what? What would I do with him? She replied unhappily. I would die of boredom with him. I need a real man, brave, courageous. I need him to be macho. You know what I mean? Not really. Jacob scratched his head. How do you explain it? I like temperamental guys to get me, answered the girl. I don't like it when guys get emotional. I like it when they risk something for me. Then I see my value. And the more risk I take, the more likely I am to fall in love with a guy like that. Isn't just saying I love you enough? I didn't understand, Jacob. You could write poems for the one you love. What's the point? Adriana laughed. Need action drive. That time Jacob did not understand what Adriana wanted from life, but that didn't make her any less attractive to him. He fell more and more in love with her. They spent a lot of time together. But the girl didn't seem to notice him. She kept talking about what kind of guy she would like. Maybe in this way Adriana was teasing Jacob, but the fact that she didn't like him and wasn't interested in him was obvious. The time was nearing the end of August. Jacob couldn't stand it and invited Adriana to take a walk around Chicago. They were walking, talking about nothing. The guy suddenly stopped Adriana. I love you. Lowering his head, Jacob said, marry me. Jacob, you what? The girl laughed. I don't want to offend you, but you're not my type at all. What tastes can be when it comes to love, he said in amazement. Sorry, but I can never love you. Adriana replied with a smile. Try to understand me. But Jacob, no matter how hard he tried, did not understand her. The girl flew to Europe again, leaving him with a broken heart. The guy hoped that in time he would forget her, but the passion for her only flared up. The next summer, she flew back to her parents again. Jacob followed her around. Jacob, what are you like a little child? Laughed at him girl. I love you so much that I don't want to live. I told you many times you are not my type. That night, Jacob got drunk for the first time in his life. He was so hurt and unbearable that he drank too much. He remembered that he had gone, so to speak, to a showdown. But beyond that, his memory was a complete blank. The next day, he woke up in his house and remembered nothing. As Adriana told him afterwards, he didn't get to see her that day, but it was a good lesson for Ethan. The guy hadn't been drinking before. But after this incident, he didn't drink anything else except champagne and beer. And so ended the summer, and another year passed. Jacob had already told his parents that he was passionately in love with Adriana, and that he could not imagine his life without her. Jacob, I will talk to Sergei Nikolaevich, said Ethan. Maybe he can influence his daughter. Because after the incident with Mom, he's going crazy. What happened at Emily's? The son asked in surprise. She was seeing some guy secretly from her parents, sighed the father. Her parents wouldn't let her marry him. So she got pregnant by him and had a baby. Now they've sent Emily to Europe. She's in Italy with the baby in their villa. Her parents are trying to marry her off to anyone to wash away the shame. So now the court may not even look at Adriana's wishes. They won't survive a second disgrace. Wow, Jacob said in shock. So Emily went against her parents. That's not like her at all. Adriana is. Yeah, that's right. Maybe that hurts James more, Ethan said with annoyance. She's always been a girl, calm and easygoing. But once she fell in love, she went against her father. And who's the boy? Curious? Jacob asked. Did she introduce him to her parents? No, replied the father. She only told her father that she had found her man, that he was a regular guy. Naturally, James didn't agree to that. I understand him in some ways, though, the boy sighed. I'm so in love with Adriana that I can't live without her. Maybe the same thing happened to her. Anyway, I'll talk to him, the man said calmly. You see, Jacob, I think he would have agreed right away if it weren't for one thing. You mean the money? The son sighed. They're very rich people. Being friends is one thing, but marrying your daughter to me is another. Yes, Ethan said sadly. His status might not allow it. And so it was. James had turned him down. He knew Jacob was a good guy, but he wanted a more promising husband for his daughter. So another year passed, and Jacob gave up altogether. The guy was finishing his residency and decided that he would never get married in his life. But suddenly circumstances changed dramatically. It was the end of May when James called his father and arranged to meet in person. "Ethan, I know you may not have understood me last time," he began. "I in no way meant to offend you or your son. But my status in society requires strict adherence to certain rules that I cannot break. In Europe, Adriana dated a guy for several years. He is the son of an immigrant from the USA who managed to get rich there. People there are not just rich, but in their circles famous. Sorry, I didn't tell you anything about that. Anyway, Adriana and this guy had a wedding scheduled for early May. Turns out he had another girlfriend. The guy's parents had cleared it with us. They really wanted Adriana to be their daughter-in-law. We even planned to pool our capital, but a week before the wedding Adriana, or even the girl, found out and gave Mike a scandal. She also told his parents everything. Anyway, it all ended with him editing some obscure video and audio recordings. He slandered Adriana in front of everyone at the wedding and accused her of cheating. We left Europe in such disgrace that we still don't know what to do. If Jacob still loves Adriana, then we are ready to perform your wedding." Ethan looked at his friend in utter bewilderment. On the one hand, the man realized that this was not about friendship or love, but about profit for James. There was already whispering about him and his daughter in the USA, and it was hurting his reputation. On the other hand, Jacob still loved Adriana. The man was in a very difficult position. "James, I'm sorry, but I can't decide for myself." Finally, he said, "I need to consult with my son." "Yes, I understand." "I'll wait," James replied. "I'm just asking you to think it over." Adriana agreed to marry James, and just like that, fate took an unexpected turn, and Adriana married a surgeon from a poor but intelligent family. "I'll try to love you," Adriana said after the wedding. Then Jacob was ready to wait for her all his life, but time passed, and their relationship remained half friendly, half official. But Jacob still continued to believe that one day Adriana would be his not only body, but would love him with all her soul. The man hoped that things would change after the baby was born. He and his wife had been actively planning for a child for several years now, but so far everything had been unsuccessful. That's why Adriana suggested that during his vacation to change the environment and go to the sea to rest. Jacob was so tired at work. He would not have had the strength to fly further than Turkey. Adriana, of course, wanted to vacation on more prestigious beaches. But in the end, she and her husband agreed. "Jacob, with your job, we cannot go anywhere at all," complained in the evening wife. "Well, maybe that's enough. Why do you need this city hospital? Dad promised us a long time ago that if you open your own clinic, he'll help us." Adriana: "Well, what am I going to do in this private clinic?" Jacob was angry. "I can't just sit around signing papers without surgery. No matter how hard it is, I love my job. I save people. I don't want to. There's no point in cutting off someone's cellulite or plumping up their lips with your experience and expertise. Would you be able to get rich like that already?" Adriana was indignant. "Good plastic surgeons make a lot of money." "Adriana, is there something you're missing?" Her husband looked at her sternly. "Do you need anything?" "It's not that." She answered quickly. "There's a difference between a doctor from a city hospital and a famous plastic surgeon. And my goal is to save people, not to disfigure them under obscure standards of beauty." Jacob said coldly, "When will all this be banned? How much do these plastic doctors produce ugliness? Is what they do beautiful? It's just a tribute to fashion. It's like when they used to spoil teeth to make them ink, as on losing cheeks, hit with forces containing mercury. The point remains the same. People have to learn how to age naturally. Jesus, how old-fashioned are you?" Adriana whispers, "You don't know anything about fashion or beauty. Imagine, I had a baby and gained weight. And where do you think I should put all this fat? How many women suffer from such problems? You're the man who set these beauty standards. You wouldn't even look at me fat. You're right, but only partially," sighed the man. "Up to 30 years really looking for some ideal perfect form. But now I do not care what size clothes you wear. And imagine if I got really fat, what then? But I'd hate it if you were fat, she answered honestly. You see, you are not at all interested in my content. With annoyance in his voice, said Jacob. So it turns out that your attitude to me determines only the form. And what kind of person am I? This is for you a complete nonsense. Unfortunately, this topic was not finished that day, and I watched a lot of people on the beach. I mean, why did this woman come here to show off her body? Isn't it humiliating for her husband? The man watched carefully as one woman about 35 years old walked her body out. She was wearing an attractive swimsuit and was trying her best to prove to other people that she had a special figure. The stranger furtively caught the gazes of other men and enjoyed it. But here her husband was also standing nearby, preying on the younger ones with his eyes and breaking them with his gaze. What is this? Jacob was indignant to himself. Is that a family? Is there any love there? Each of them would cheat on the other if they could. He looked unhappily at Ada, who was posing in all her glory near the water. She was going in and out of the sea. Of course, Jacob knew somewhere inside that Adriana didn't love him, but he still hoped that one day she would want to look inside him and see what he was really like. The man shifted his gaze and an elderly couple came into his field of vision. The man and woman were in their early 70s, but they were holding hands like teenagers. The stranger had a rounder belly, but it was obvious that his companion was skinny, and the old woman was not embarrassed in the slightest. They kept looking into each other's eyes and smiled merrily. How pleasant to look at them, Jacob rejoiced. Nothing changed their love. No age, no decrepit bodies, no passionate glances around. How I wish Adriana could love me the same way. After a few days, Jacob finally calmed down and was able to enjoy life. The last 2 days had gone so well that the man even regretted the fact that they had to leave tomorrow. Hello, Max, dialed Jacob. Friend's number when they got home. I'm on vacation, so I can at least talk to you normally. I'm so glad to hear from you. I heard a happy voice. Listen, I'm gonna be at my parents' house in 2 days. Why don't we get together? I'm only going to be here for a couple of days, but I can't not meet you because I miss you so much. Jacob was looking forward to meeting his old friend. Finally, it was Thursday. Max, hey, buddy. He hugged the man. How many years? How many winters? Hey, buddy. Max hugged him. We haven't seen each other for almost a year, so tell me how you're doing. They liked to meet at their old cafe. This time they still had the same tradition. What business could there be? Jacob answered calmly. I have all the same things going on. It's the same scene, only sometimes the scenery changes. Do you have at least some variety? You have different operations, a friend said. And we have been sitting on our project for 3 years. We still cannot move. I am already sick of it, and I understand you, answered Jacob. It reminds me of the last years of studying at the Institute, knowing for sure that it will all end soon, but it all drags on and on without end. Sighed Max. I regret so much that I turned down an internship abroad then. You know Peter, who went to France instead of me and stayed. Sometimes he calls me and tells me they have such interesting things going on over there. There's a project in Africa or in Israel. He's almost seen the whole world. And I was afraid. How could I abandon my project in New York? So I was left with nothing. Max, no one knows what's best for you. His friend looked at him seriously. Maybe you wouldn't have succeeded in France. Or maybe it just wasn't your time to finish your project. Maybe something better will come up for you. Well, you're right about that, my friend smiled. If I'd gone to France, then this miracle wouldn't have happened. Betty is expecting a baby. Wow, the friend rejoiced. My God, how many years have you tried? How many protocols have you gone through? It's a miracle. I'm sorry, but I never said Max's head down before. We're 8 months pregnant with twins, boys. Tenta, let's grab a beer and toast to that, Jacob suggested. I'm so happy for you. What about you and Adriana? Max asked. You've already started planning. You know, we don't have any problems, neither she nor I, the man replied. She said herself that she would not have a baby until she was 27, and now she is 28. We started to try 2 years ago, but not persistently so that we could work on it for a year. We went to Turkey especially for this purpose, to change the situation. I am sure that you will succeed. Max supported him. Betty and I have been working hard for 10 years. We have spent so much effort and money, but it is worth it. You know, when I see our boys kicking their feet in the stomach, it makes my heart sink. Jacob, can you believe I'm a father? The news that Max and Betty were about to have twins inspired Jacob so much that he decided to talk to Adriana and ask her to take the matter more seriously. But there was one day left before the vacation was over. Jacob didn't want to do anything that day. He just lay on the couch and watched TV. Adriana had gone somewhere in the morning, so he just enjoyed his solitude. The man didn't want to think about anything. He was completely immersed in some nature program he was watching. He was so absorbed in the TV that he didn't notice his wife returning. Adriana was standing in front of the couch and was very nervous. "Jacob," she called out to him, "Jacob, I need to tell you something." The man looked at his wife's concerned face and turned off the television. "What happened?" he asked excitedly. "Are you all pale?" "Jacob, I went to the doctor today. She started we're going to have a baby." "You're pregnant?" he said, Adriana in astonishment. "We're having a baby. Oh my God, that's news." Jacob clutched his head. A real surprise. The next day, Jacob went to work. The fact that Adriana is expecting a baby so inspired him that the man just flew with happiness. "Maria, is this for you?" He handed his nurse a box of Turkish sweets. "Can you get fat? I'll let you." "Jacob, if I were 10 years younger, I'd never miss a guy like you." The nurse laughed. "Thank you, darling, but be careful." The surgeon frowned playfully. "You do not tell me such things. After all, I'm not only married now, but I'm going to be a father." "Are you pregnant?" in astonishment said Maria. "Wow, and congratulations from the bottom of my heart." Everything in Jacob, as if from the news, changed. He began to devote more time to his wife. Of course, it was impossible for him to spend a lot of time with her, but after work he tried to be with her every day. Not to say that Adriana was happy about it. The woman would have preferred to be alone more. "Are you the one with the mood swings?" her husband told her. "A very typical pregnancy condition. So be patient. If you feel like crying. But it's all business and in moderation. Don't get yourself worked up. I can imagine what will happen to me when Adriana starts sobbing like that. I'll have no one to care about then." "It's not that bad," replied her husband. "And not every pregnant woman has strong mood swings. Many just have morning sickness and that's it. So let's not create problems for ourselves in advance. It's easy for you to say you're unhappy," said the wife. "It's not like you're pregnant. You will not believe it, but I would with you to change places." "Agreed," laughed the man. "And Idol would lie around all day and from his work would rest. But unfortunately, only women give birth." All the grandparents were also very happy and were waiting impatiently for Adriana's belly to appear. The girl was very much annoyed by this, and lately she tried to stay at home and not go to her or Ethan's parents to visit. But that didn't stop them. So their parents themselves often traveled to their house to visit them. "Jacob, I'm so sick of all these parties." One night my wife burst into tears. "I just want to lie here and they're asking me what I ate today. How am I doing?" "Hell, I'll talk to your mom so they don't bother you so much." Jacob suggested it. "You tell your mom that too, and say no hard feelings." "But I don't want to see anyone right now." "You're right. I'll call them," the girl replied. "If I need to, I'll go to them myself, or I'll just get in the car to go somewhere and be alone." They're already here on the doorstep. So a month went by. Adriana never really started to get a strong kosa. Mostly her eating habits changed. She had a constant craving for hot pepper chips and snacks. At first, Jacob was in complete shock when she ate several packs a day of both. But after he consulted a good doctor, he calmed down. "The main thing is that she's not throwing up or vomiting a lot," he said. "Jacob, and this after the 3rd, 4th month will pass, so let her eat." Despite the fact that the mood changed with supernatural speed, Jacob eventually got used to it. At times, the girl was simply unbearable. She often left home on the pretext that she needed to be alone. But none of this could not overshadow the joy of Ethan, and he was more and more tuned in to become a father. Max called a friend one day. "How does it feel to be a father?" To twins. "You know, Jacob, I cannot tell you all this in one word," a friend said tiredly. It's not that there are pros and cons to everything. Just at first such euphoria, and then, when they do not sleep at night, and you, which at night already does not sleep, it is difficult to say. Of course you love your kids anyway. But I'll tell you honestly, for me the biggest problem is not that they scream, but that you can't even calm them down at night. I don't know how Betty handles them all by herself. I'm still in the euphoric stage, he sighed. Although Adriana has a terrible temper, and she's always getting on my nerves. But I'm very happy about her pregnancy. So you take advantage of the moment to be happy, laughed Max. And then when the baby is born, you won't know where you can get away from it. I'll tell you this, friend. If you feel that you have become a father, then everything else is like the sea. Well, if by the birth of the child you do not realize it, then it will be difficult to get along with it all. My Tanya had no problems during her pregnancy, and she was only on the ward once. Not as much stress. We got away with it all. But the kids were born so restless for some reason, and nobody knows why. Jacob was mentally prepared to be a father. He'd been setting himself up for it all along. Instead of nature and travel shows, he studied different seminars for future fathers, read medical books on family psychology. In general, he had no intention of backing down and was preparing for his new role with all the responsibility he could muster. A nurse asked him one day, "He's getting serious. No jokes? You don't tell funny stories, Maria, but I have to grow up sometime. Teacher's morals," he replied. "I'm preparing for fatherhood." "So what? You don't think you can laugh now?" The nurse laughed. "You're like a big baby, for God's sake. Sometimes I can," he argued. "But how can I be an example to my child if I continue to be so unserious?" "You'd better laugh," the nurse smiled. "Otherwise your child will think from birth that it is not allowed to have fun and will grow up with some abnormalities." "Do you think you're in shock?" the doctor said. "I didn't think about it. It feels like you're pregnant, not your wife." Maria laughed. "You should have gotten yourself so worked up. You know, when I had my mumps, I had a real crush on my husband's jokes. He's a joker. As soon as he'd say something funny to me to distract me and make me laugh, I'd start crying. At first he couldn't understand what was wrong, and I couldn't explain it to him. On the contrary, he wants to cheer me up, but his jokes make me cry. Thank God, by the 5th month, my tantrums were over. Jack was born a healthy boy. He's 18 now and as humorous as his father. When they get together to laugh with them, you can sew, 'Let's not have your morning face.' I can't wait for Adriana to have the baby, and I'll run away from you before you do." "Yeah, who's going to let you go?" Jacob smiled. "I can't do without you here. So don't even think that you and I will be carried out of here." He laughed. "That's the same thing." Maria supported him. "Now it's different. And I thought that I already began to lose my Jasoba." From that day, Jacob began to treat his wife's pregnancy as easier, and it became easier for him. About 3 weeks later, the head doctor called them all together. It was a big meeting. There were a lot of questions. We had to solve something with the new equipment. It was scheduled to arrive next week. The Ministry of Health had come up with some new innovations. We had to put them into circulation. All in all, it was a tough day. There were no scheduled surgeries until this afternoon. And no emergencies yet. Jacob and his colleague David were discussing something in his office. Maria made them tea, so they'll send someone from the department to get the new equipment up and running. The nurse asked with interest, "Or do we have to guess how it works?" "That's the thing," David sighed. "They were supposed to send Ethan and me for training, but because of the lack of money, we're going to have to figure it out on our own. It's like kindergarten, for God's sake." Jacob scolded, as if we were playing in a sandbox. "And what if this machine during the operation will stop or somewhere their switches? And we don't know about it." "They don't have any brains in there, or they don't care," answered his colleague. "They are all theorists there. Do you think in this Ministry of Health anyone like you and me stood at the operating table for so many hours? So you cannot even count on their understanding. All right, but it's not far from malpractice. The doctor couldn't calm down. "I've got a baby on the way, and I can't even deal with this gang." "Well, we'll deal with it ourselves." David said tiredly, "You heard what the chief said. They'll send us detailed instructions along with the equipment." He swore like hell. "We've been waiting so many years for a new machine. And now, when it arrives, we won't know what to do with it. Actually, it should be brought by an engineer and some doctor who is already using it." A nurse intervened. "You know, Maria, they don't owe us anything," sighed the elderly surgeon. "Their duty is to demand from us and meet the deadlines they set. It's the same thing every time. Once a surgeon becomes chief of surgery, after a couple of months, he forgets what kind of workload is there. How hard it is for us to meet all their deadlines. He's been suffering from it himself and wanted to leave. Instead of the previous one, now he's becoming a tyrant himself." David was finishing his tea when Ethan's phone rang. A text came in. The man reached into his pocket and opened some kind of video. After a few minutes, he turned pale. A video and 3 pictures came to his phone with his wife in them. Jacob ran out of the office. "No, it can't be." "Pale lips," he said. "This is some kind of setup." The man was no professional, but he thought both the photos and the video were believable. As the photos showed Adriana with some man having intimacy at their villa, Jacob could not understand how he should react to all this. Was it all true, or had it all been set up for some purpose? He was in complete prostration for a few minutes, but then it came to him from the deepest depths that he urgently needed to go to the cottage. David, out of breath, ran into the office. "I'm asking you to cover for me. I need to leave urgently. I'm in trouble. Did something happen to Adriana?" The doctor said excitedly. "She fell." That's all Jacob could manage to say. "I'll work for you later. Maria, stay with David." The nurse and the doctor gave the man a concerned look. He was very nervous and not himself. "If I go in a straight line now, it will take me about 40 minutes, Jacob told himself. "Shouldn't I call her first? Maybe someone had set this up on purpose." He stopped. He was torn in different directions. On the one hand, he wanted to call. On the other hand, he wanted to check it out. Well, let's say it's all a lie. Jacob started the car. "Then I'll go to the cottage and find no one. Then I'll start to find out what it was." But if Jacob's heart seemed to go through that thought, the man's heart began to pound frantically. "But if it's true, and she is there, I'll catch her in the act," he whispered, wiping lines of cold sweat from his face. All the way he was trying to find out if she was cheating on him with someone else or not. His brain was just exploding at the thought. But other than this video and pictures, he had no proof, which meant it could all be a lie. Jacob. He had performed many difficult surgeries in his life. But what happened to him then was his greatest challenge. He had never experienced such fear. The man decided to leave his car at the beginning of the street so that no one would recognize him. He had to walk another 500 meters. He walked cautiously, looking around. He felt like he was a criminal. "God, when am I going to get there?" Nervous, he said to himself, "This all seems like bullshit." He turned onto his street and was simply stunned. His wife's car was parked outside their house. Jacob stood like a stumbling block and could not move further feet softer. He almost fell. The man sat down on some bench outside the house he was standing next to. He felt like his heart was going to jump out. "I must find out the truth," he said to himself, and slowly got up from the bench and walked towards the cottage. Jacob cautiously crept up to the fence. The gate was locked. The windows on the first floor were for what arena, and nothing could be seen. The man strode around the back. The neighboring villa was long abandoned. He crept slowly up from the garden side. One foot caught, and he could barely keep his balance. Finally, Jacob was outside the house. He slowly turned the handle of the small door that led from the small shed into the house. Taking off his shoes on his socks, he walked down the hallway. The door to the living room on the first floor was open. Jacob pressed himself against the wall and crawled sideways along it. The closer he got, the clearer some sounds became. Finally, he began to recognize voices. "Adriana, well, will you stop playing games?" The man said grudgingly. "We've been hiding from everyone for so many years. It's been almost a year since I got divorced. Sweetheart. But now, until I give birth to a child, I cannot tell her anything or her. The man heard his wife's voice. You think I'm not tired of all this? If it hadn't been for my father, I wouldn't have married him at all. But after Europe, he didn't want to wait, you see. It all hit him hard, and he had to rebuild his reputation. So I went into marriage with Ethan. Do you know how much I regret it? Well, what are you going to tell him now? The stranger sighed. I mean, you're pregnant. I don't know, Kevin. Adriana answered. That's why I'm asking you to wait. Maybe in time something will change. I love you, the man replied. I can't live without you anymore. Neither can I. She kissed him. Be patient for a while. I'll think of something. Jacob at first wanted to fly into the room and tear it all down, but then he changed his mind. He left the house as carefully as he came in. He climbed over the back of the neighboring cottage and blinked stealthily to the beginning of the street. At that moment, Jacob did not want to think about anything. He only wanted to scream at the top of his voice. The pain stiffened his heart as well, so that it became difficult for him to breathe. What kind of a fool was I? He finally burst into tears, getting into his car. After all, she never loved me. I had made it all up, but why? Does it make me feel better that she lied to me all those years? On the contrary, I'm in unbearable pain right now. Jacob drove and drove. He didn't know which direction to go. He just wanted to drive into some foggy place, disappear forever. It was about 7 o'clock in the evening when the man began to regain consciousness. He was very thirsty. His stomach was sticking out a lot. He stopped the car and got out to stretch his legs. Looked at the navigator. Jacob had driven almost 200 kilometers. Oh God, where am I? He looked around. I don't even know these places. After hitting the waters a bit, the man sat down in his seat. The door to the car was open. The evening brought a bit of a chill. So it's all true, and I can't deny it, he said loudly. I wondered what I should do with this truth. Jacob clutched his head and sat like that for a while. But no matter how hard it was for him, he had to make a decision. Now the question arises, whose child is it, mine or his? The man thought, what am I supposed to do with all this? I can't live with myself after this, that's for sure. No matter how much I love her. It just doesn't make any sense, because she doesn't love me, to tell me everything that happened today and right now or to wait for the right moment. It's not like I can play it off like nothing happened. The man stepped out and wandered toward the field. The evening grass filled his lungs with freshness and coolness. For a while, Jacob even forgot where he was and what had happened to him. But he brought it back quickly. I need to wait for a while. Jacob decided. Maybe I can find out whose baby it is. Then all these issues will be easier to deal with. If it's Kevin's, then the divorce will be painless. But if it's my child, then her parents will get on my nerves, maybe even threaten me. So I need to buy some time to learn about everything and have arguments on my hands. Then her father will have nothing to say to me. I'll keep the video and the photos. And then the man turned pale. Until that moment, the thought of who it could be had never even crossed his mind. But then who knows that Adriana has a lover? Shocked, he said, who sent me all those pictures? Jacob quickly ran to the car, picked up his phone, dialed the number from which the video and photos had come, but it was blocked. Naturally, no one would send such photos to the police from his personal number. The man said with annoyance in his voice. But if you think about it, who could it be? Probably one of my employees. Yeah, no one at my workplace has ever seen Adriana. Only Maria, and that's on a photo taken on a cell phone. And no one knows about our cottage. Well, they know we have one. But I've never told anyone the exact address. With work, I guess it's all a dead end. Nobody here cares much about me. Then maybe it's just one person taking revenge. Maybe Kevin's not her first man. Then it's very likely that he's been following her and knows where our villa is and when she and her lover go there. I don't have any other options yet. It looks like Adriana's revenge, and I'm the bargaining chip in this whole thing. But maybe it's for the best. It's not a question of how many men she had while we were married. It's the fact that she didn't love me, and if I continue to pursue this line now, that man in the photo will not rest. He's gonna look at my reaction now, And then he's gonna send me more proof. Because he's going to have to prove to me that Adriana really cheated on me. Yeah, the best thing for me to do in this situation is to wait. Despite the fact that Jacob regained some composure, the man was in a lot of pain. He was well aware that after what he had seen, he would no longer be able to hide his anger. Jacob made up a story that he had some serious problems at work, so he did not want to see anyone anytime soon. The man was on his way home. It was getting late when his phone rang. "Jacob, where are you? Did you hear Adriana's voice? It's 10 o'clock. Yes, we had a serious problem at work. It's cold," he answered. "I'll be there in about an hour." "Hell, I'm sorry, but I don't want to see anyone right now," he added and disconnected the phone. He was afraid that if he continued to talk to his wife, he wouldn't be able to stand it and would tell her everything. He would never know the truth. Finally, the familiar scenery flashed outside the window. Jacob pulled into Chicago. The closer he got to the house, the more he shuddered. Because of her pregnancy, Adriana slept in her room. And that, for Ethan, was a good thing. He realized that he would have to make a great effort not to give himself away. And to do that, he needed to see Adriana as little as possible right now. The car pulled into the courtyard. Jacob almost collapsed outside the house from fatigue and overexertion. He gathered all his strength and went inside the house. Everywhere was dark, and the man realized that his wife was already asleep. "Well, thank God," he muttered. "And tomorrow I'll get up for work, and she won't see me. And now she's up late." Despite his hunger, Jacob went straight to his bedroom. He didn't even have the energy to think, so he immediately fell into sleep. It was almost 7 o'clock a.m. when Jacob woke up. He walked into the kitchen. The servants were not there yet. Had a coffee and a sandwich and got his things. Went to the hospital. Maria hadn't arrived yet, and to distract himself, Jacob started filling out patient files. "How did you suddenly say someone's voice behind his back?" "Jacob, are you okay?" Concerned asked the nurse, seeing the pale face of the surgeon. "Is something wrong?" "Maria, yes, everything is fine." Barely pronounced sleep. "It's okay. I was so nervous. And I was up all night with her too. But the main thing is that everything is all right." Stroke on the shoulder of the surgeon. "Maria, are you going to be able to work today?" He tried to smile. "David won't be able to fill in for me all the time." "Well, that's true," confirmed the nurse. "Although yesterday he and I rested most of the day. We had one open fracture and a shattered head with a concussion." "Well, that's good." "I was getting worried that David had gotten a kick out of me yesterday," Jacob replied. "It must be your bad luck," she laughed. "How's your shift going?" "We're in trouble." Anna Sergeyevna James was the second daughter of a famous rich man. As a girl, she grew up willful and capricious. From childhood, she pulled the whole blanket on herself because the family formed the opinion that all her needs and desires must be fulfilled. Father, by the way, was not against it. He was impressed by her inexhaustible energy and desire to live. Adriana could sometimes behave recklessly, for which from time to time got into some unpleasant stories. Her passion was not only movement, learning something new, but also the attention of other people. It became a real drug for the girl. Adriana went crazy when people bowed before her, when they ran after her, when they could not live without her. When the girl studied in Europe, she learned to manipulate people quite well. So many guys who went crazy about her were dizzy. The girl herself was just playing with them. That's how it was with Mike at first. He was the son of very rich parents, and as it turned out, he was spoiled even more than Adriana. The girl had heard about him for a long time and wanted to get to know him better. Naturally, she was not particularly interested in simple guys on such. She just practiced her seduction skills. But for marriage, the girl considered only a guy from a very rich family, Mike. She had already seen him several times before she met him, and she liked him. The guy was really good. When they first met at a party, Adriana did her best to attract Mike to her, and she succeeded. The guy quickly became interested in her. 2 weeks later, they started dating. Adriana first tried to reform Mike. He was irresponsible, and the relationship was never serious. But then his father and mother got involved. They liked the idea that Adriana could marry Mike. So his father had a very serious talk with the guy. Adriana and the guy dated for almost 3 years when the wedding date was set, but she always knew that he had someone on the side all the time. Before the wedding, the girl gave him an ultimatum. Mike wasn't used to that kind of thing. He turned out to be a pretty violent and vindictive guy. "Mike, you have to realize that your free relationship is over," Adriana said to the guy. "You're gonna get married soon, and you're gonna have a family." "Adriana, you don't have to tell me how to live my life." He looked at her angrily. "I decide how I want to live my life. If you don't like it, get out. Are you out of your mind?" The girl got angry. "I'll tell your father everything. Let's see how you sing when he takes everything away from you. Don't cross me." He stared intently into her eyes. "I won't spare you, Adriana. Don't play games with me. We'll see about that." Furious, she shouted, "I'll talk to your parents. I think you have a lot to lose, so you'll listen to them." Mike was not used to being told what he should do. Even his parents couldn't influence him. But the guy realized that Adriana could blackmail him and make his parents take everything away from him for a while until he changed. His parents were on her side. "All right, Adriana, I'll show you how fast I got rid of you," clenched his fists. After their conversation, the guy did just that. At the wedding, Adriana and her parents were completely embarrassed. Her father was just freaking out at the time. He really didn't know what to do, as circles on the water quickly spread rumors that Adriana, the daughter of one of the richest people, turned out to be an ordinary wench. Father was going crazy in those days. The only thing he could see was to marry off his daughter urgently. Of course, from his circle, no one would have agreed to such a thing back then. So they had to find a decent family for Adriana's temporary marriage, so to speak. At the time, it didn't matter who it was. He had a few guys in mind, but Adriana chose the son of an old surgeon Ethan knew. "Adriana, I don't care," he told his wife. "The important thing is that he marries Adriana officially now, and then we'll look for a suitable match for her." "James, we are taking such a risk," the wife replied. "What if they have children? Then no one will marry a decent family." "That's what you'll do with her," replied the man. "Though you all will tell you what doctor to visit and how to protect her from unwanted pregnancy." Lucy, "I want to solve all this in a year. 2 at the most, no more." Adriana's wedding was modest. There were only her parents and a few other acquaintances from Jacob's side of the family. It had happened so fast that not Max, Ethan's friend, not Emily and Adriana's sister could make it. You could tell it was a private ceremony. A year later, Adriana's parents had already found the right person for her. Kevin was the son of a banker. Their fortune was estimated only much less than James's. The guy had married an ordinary Italian woman a few years ago. He had studied in Italy for 5 years, and when it came time to play the wedding to the girl his parents had picked up for him, he found himself already married. His parents gave him a huge scandal and even disowned him. This Kevin did not embarrass Kevin in the slightest, and he continued to live his life. In Italy, he worked so that he had no problems with the maintenance of his family. One day, the Kevins were visiting James and told him about how their son lives now. "It's such a shame. Such shame," through tears, Kevin's mother said. "We still can't get over it. Maybe you should introduce him to a nice girl." Lucy mother Adriana came up with an amazing idea. "Maybe he'll like her and forget about your Italian Kevin." "Where are we going to find one of those?" sighed the boy's father. "And all the nice unmarried girls will wait for him, won't they? Now we have to run after him and woo him to make him forget his Italian." "You know, Liam, we have Adriana living with that surgeon too." Through tears, said James. "It was such a mistake to marry her off to a simple man. It's been a year now, and my girl is just dying," I told her after Europe. "And my daughter, wait. Your man will come along." And she wanted to take revenge on Mike and married the first man she met. You know how my heart aches for her. I'm afraid I'm going to lose my daughter. She's already so sorry. She wants her surgeons to divorce her. She says if I could find a good guy who could love me, I'd leave my husband Jacob right away. "Yes, you're in the same trouble," sighed Mrs. Kavina. "Why didn't our children meet before? Maybe then they would have found their happiness in each other? Or maybe it's not too late," cautiously said Lucy. We're going to Italy to our villa in a month. We could invite Kevin to stay with us. That's not a bad idea, his eyes sparkled. Why don't you bring your daughter? Let them get to know each other. Everything was ready to leave for Italy. James called his daughter Adriana to him. This is your chance. He looked at her sternly. You didn't miss it. Kevin is the son of very wealthy people, and being related to a banker will be good for us. I can do business with him. Dad, all right. My daughter looked at him. Let's say we like each other. Then what am I supposed to do with Ethan? What about your daughter? What could be the problem with him? The man laughed. We'll file for divorce right away. If Ethan makes any claims against me, I'll give him money. That'll keep him quiet, especially after he stopped practicing because of his illness. That kind of money will do him good. James was from the village, but the race for more money had changed him so much that he had forgotten that he had once been such a simple fellow. Now he saw himself as an overlord who could make or buy anyone. Ethan and his son were just things he had used, and now he could throw away. So in Italy, Kevin's first meeting with Adriana had been a success. At least that's how it seemed to the girl's young father. It's strange, Kevin thought. I don't know them, and they talk to me like I was a good friend. Maybe their father sent them. After the first meeting, he was impressed, not by Adriana, but by everything that had happened. James asked him to go with them to Sicily for a weekend, and he agreed. He had only been there once before. He wanted to visit those places again. Adriana said, breathing in the air of Sicily, "How beautiful it is here. Kevin, I even envy you. Can you come here every weekend?" "It's not that simple, Adriana," he objected. "I have to work. That's why I don't always have enough time or money to travel. We rent a place in the Dominican Republic. We don't have our own place yet. Doesn't your father help you?" "Watch out," asked the girl. "Uncle Liam, as far as I know, is a rich man." "Yes, he has a lot of money," sighed the boy. "But I don't need it. I chose my own happiness. My parents didn't support me in that. And I understand you," Adriana replied with annoyance in her voice. "I was in the same situation. When I got married to a simple surgeon, my parents stopped talking to me. I was just torn and metal. But as time went on, I realized they were right. Ethan and I are so different that I'm just unhappy with him. And you're okay with that life?" "No," but Kevin looked at her. "I love the Dominican Republic. I don't care what my parents think. It is difficult, of course, to live on my own after a fully provided for life, but I am coping so far." That day they visited the most beautiful places in Sicily, swooning in the sea. And she was all right. A thought flashed through Kevin's mind. What am I talking about? He quickly stopped himself, but after that day, the James family with Kevin became a good tradition to go somewhere on the weekend. The Russians spent exactly 1 month at their villa. "James, thank you very much for the communication, for our meetings." The guy shook the man's hand in farewell. "I was very glad to meet you." Mutually, Igor hugged him. "James, you turned out to be a good guy. I don't know why your parents are so upset with you. I wouldn't let a son like that go anywhere." The James family. They so unobtrusively got into Kevin's soul that after they left, the guy couldn't come to his senses for a long time. He felt like he was missing something. A few weeks passed, and he decided to give James Nikolaevich a call. "Igor, hello." James rejoiced. "I'm so glad to hear from you. How are you doing? How is Italy?" "Everything is fine," answered the guy. "And how are you doing? How's it going?" "We are doing well so far, thank God," replied the man. "Adriana is suffering, though. If you want, I'll give you her phone number. Maybe she'll talk to you. We were so happy that our girl in Italy came back to life, but as soon as we got home, she is again always alone and won't let anyone near her." "Well, okay," Kevin replied. "Maybe I cheered her up a little." The guy didn't even notice that he had tied a noose around his neck. Talking to Adriana on the phone made her even more attractive, and when Adriana flew to the villa, the next thing you know, they were having an affair. The girl got everything she dreamed of. Kevin was really after her. He took risks. Adriana became an object of adoration for him. For about a year, the girl flew to Italy every 2 or 3 months. But Kevin was not going to divorce his Italian wife yet. James realized that he just had to bide his time. After a year and a half, Kevin filed divorce papers. Adriana hoped that in a couple of months, she would already be able to divorce Ethan and marry Kevin. But Dominica went on principle and created a lot of problems for Kevin. Therefore, they divorced with scandals and constant lawsuits. It took almost 2 years. Finally, all the documents were received, and Kevin could return to his family. His parents lived in New York, and he left Italy to continue his father's business. Kevin's child was madly happy that their son finally understood everything and made the right choice in his life. When Kevin came to New York, he and Adriana found it easier to see each other. He started coming to Chicago often. Sometimes he and Adriana would meet at her parents' house. But most of all, they preferred the privacy of their villa. It was the old Villa James that her father had given to his daughter for her wedding. Therefore, Adriana felt at home there. The girl found out that she was pregnant weeks before she and her husband went to Turkey. So she set everything up. So she and Ethan made everything work out. While on vacation, her husband didn't count the days much, so he went along with everything right away. It was impossible to tell that Adriana and Kevin were planning a baby. It looked as if it had happened by accident. But the girl knew for sure that the baby was from him with Ethan. She had been on birth control pills for all the years, so she couldn't get pregnant with him. Adriana realized that now she would have to deal with the Ethan issue, and her father had already insisted on it. But she had her own reason for delaying the divorce, which neither of them knew. James was born and raised in a small village. He came from a poor family. As a teenager, he fell in love with a neighbor girl, Katya. Therefore, when the guy was 20 years old, his choice was already determined. It must be said that James was a young man with great ambitions. In the village, he did not want to stay. And after the wedding, he and Kate immediately moved to the city. The first years of life in the city were very difficult for them. James got a job as a laborer in the road service and quickly mastered the work of road machines. The boy realized that this industry can be a bottomless one. Old roads are being repaired and new ones are being built all the time. So he rented a roller and grader and hired a few guys. After a year, he was already able to buy back his equipment. After a couple more years, he had his own road construction company. This could stop and live well, but the ambitious guy wanted to go even further. He invested all his money in an engineering plant. 10 years later, James, aged 35, became the owner of one of the largest road construction equipment factories in the world. Perhaps he was lucky in life. Perhaps it was his inflexibility that helped him, but he did get his way, and everything would have gone on as it was if Kate hadn't died. Their first daughter was born when Kate was almost 28 years old. Their life was full of stress, so they could not have children earlier. After the birth of their daughter, the girl could not recover for a long time, and a year later she was diagnosed with cancer. James, what only did not do? But to save his wife, he never managed. It cannot be said that the young man was heartbroken. Sure, he grieved for a while. But James became so addicted to money that it became for him the only goal in life. It was almost 2 years later when he began to think about getting married. His little daughter Emily was under the care of a governess all the time. In this, the man knew no problems, but he wanted to have a solid status in society, and his condition as a widower did not help him in any way. Even then, James began to think about a girl from a rich family. "I've already reached such horizons that I don't need a wire anymore," he told himself, looking in the mirror. "I've worked so hard to get to a position in society that I'm not going to fall for any romance." James, once at a call at a nobleman's party, he said that he was going to marry and was looking for a suitable candidate. Naturally, the girl had to be from a rich family, well-bred, educated. The rumor reached William's house. He had a daughter named Lucy, but she was so spoiled that her parents had been unable to marry her for nearly 7 years. The girl's temper was simply unbearable. "Lucy, listen to me," the father said to his daughter. "This is your last chance. Do what you want, but this James forget." Here's another crossed her arms on her chest girl. "I don't need this redneck. Then I'll marry you off tomorrow to the first man I see." In a rage, said the man, "You understand me, and you will get nothing more from us." Lucy saw that her father was not joking and was very frightened with her demands. To stay with some beggar on the street for her was tantamount to death. The girl repeated for several more days, but her father did not give up his position. Then Lucy tried to manipulate her mother. "Don't even think that I will ask your father for you." Coldly, she replied, "You've gotten on our nerves so much that I'll be the first. Who's going to kick you out of the house?" "Mom, but he has a daughter." I tried to find the right argument. "You didn't want the guys we offered you all those years ago," my mother said angrily. "They didn't have any children. Now you have to solve this problem yourself." The acquaintances organized a dinner, or rather, a viewing for James and Lucy. The girl tried to restrain her arrogance. She herself realized that at her age, and she was already 28, it's not easy to find a guy who matches her needs. You could say it was an official marriage of convenience. It was a big wedding. The father was so happy to finally get rid of his daughter that he spared no money for the wedding. At first, Lucy thought that Emily would be a big problem for her. But to her happiness, the girl grew up very calm. She lent herself well to the education of her nannies. Yes, and James, her husband, did not spend much time with his daughter. His new wife didn't see the girl as much. At this stage, things were going well for Lucy. She didn't have to make a scene when her husband spent too much time with her daughter. But as Emily began to grow older, she, like any teenager, began to show interest in all areas of life. When Adriana Lucy was born, they immediately separated her from her older sister. Therefore, strange as it may sound, the children did not see each other that often. When Adriana was 8 years old, she had her first scandal. Emily and her toys were playing in the garden. The girl ran up to her, started throwing her toys around the sides of the llama doll's hands. "What are you doing?" Shocked, shouted Emily. "Why are you breaking my dolls?" "Yours," laughed 8-year-old Adriana. "Nothing here is yours. Everything here is mine. Get out of here. This is my house too," protested her sister. "Give me my dolls. Leave me alone." "Ah, so evil," shouted Adriana. "Are you gonna get it now?" She started yelling with all her might. It felt like she was being cut. After 5 minutes, the mother came running, and "Daughter, what happened?" She asked worriedly and looked angrily at Emily. "She took my dolls and started breaking them," screamed the girl, "and then she hit me." "Are you out of your mind?" Furious, said Lucy. "Go to your room. I won't let you play in the garden anymore." That evening, there was a scandal between husband and wife. Lucy did not want to give up her position. "Wherever you want her and take her," she shouted. "But she won't be in our house anymore." "Lucy, she's my daughter," James replied sternly. "No need to throw words around." "Okay, then Adriana and I will leave this house today," calmly replied his wife. "In a few days I will send you the divorce papers." "All right," the husband got angry. "I will send Emily to a boarding house in Italy." James finally gave in. After the daughter from her first marriage was expelled from the house, Adriana became a real mistress there. The first time Emily was able to be at home was not until she was 16. The father invited his daughter home for summer vacation, so she showed up. Adriana greeted her. "No one was expecting you here. I came to see my father, not you. I tried to talk some sense into my little sister Emily, so don't let it bother you." But Adriana couldn't accept it. Every day she thought of something to do. The girl would put the ice cream on the chair, locked her door so she couldn't get out, threw a fly or a spider in her plate. "Adriana, when are you going to calm down?" Emily once said to her, "Don't you realize I don't need any of this? You can have this house and your father's wealth. You're the one who doesn't understand me," she shouted angrily. "I just hate you. I would be the happiest person in the world if I could see you dead now. At your funeral, I would have laughed for a very long time." Why did Adriana hate Emily so much? She didn't know. But she sensed some inner strength in her sister, and it hurt her deeply. Adriana had always known that she was really a coward. She was a worthless girl. Adriana would never be able to survive without her father and his money. Emily, on the other hand, seemed to be able to adapt to everything. No other country frightened her. Not like at the boarding house, where the children were treated very strictly. Adriana had always felt that compared to her older sister, she looked like a pacifier. That was probably one of the reasons why the girl wanted adoration. In the back of her mind, she was afraid that any guy would choose Emily over her. After that visit, Emily did not appear at her father's house for a long time. Yes, and the girl entered the institute and all her attention focused on her studies. Even though Adriana had already studied in Europe and her father's house no longer attracted her. But on her sister's 20th birthday, her father insisted that his eldest daughter came to her birthday party. Adriana resisted this for a long time. She even argued with her father, but he did not change his decision. Let them finally establish a normal relationship with each other, her father thought. Adriana had changed a little during this time. She stopped feeling so much aggression towards her sister. In the first place, everyone confirmed that the girl was much prettier than Emily. In the second place, all the numerous fans of Adriana, whom she had broken her heart in Europe, gave her some self-confidence. "Hello, sister," she greeted Emily snidely. "I hope you're not here for long." "And I'm glad to see you," Adriana calmly replied Emily. "Unfortunately, I can only stay here for a few days. We have a summer internship at the institute. I can't miss it." "That's good," Adriana said cheerfully. "I think I'll put up with you for a few days." There were a lot of people at Adriana's birthday party. Her mother wanted to show everyone how much her daughter had grown up. Emily sat alone, far away from everyone. She didn't know any of the guests. Suddenly, she saw Ethan's familiar face. She said excitedly, "How happy am I to see you? And this must be Jacob. Don't you remember me? You and I together tied the bloody paw of one dog." Emily said in amazement, "Honestly, you've changed a lot. How are you doing? I hear you are studying in Italy." The girl and the boy talked about something for a long time. They reminisced about their childhood and the few times they had met together. Emily was very sweet and open. Jacob hadn't expected that from her. At all. Emily's father didn't talk about her much. All his hopes and plans were connected with Adriana. Suddenly, the host appeared on the stage, and the party began. A few minutes later, the birthday girl came up to him as well. God was amazed. Boy, this Adriana. Yeah, she's a real hottie. Emily wanted to continue the conversation with Ethan, but it was as if he wasn't listening to her anymore. All his attention was absorbed by Adriana. The girl saw how he approached her and told her something admiringly. A few days later, Jacob showed up at their yard. "Jacob, hello." She ran out to meet him. "Emily, you're coming to visit us. Where is Adriana?" the guy asked the girl. "She's at home. I'd like to take her for a walk." "Is she on the phone with someone at home?" answered Emily. "Let's go have some lemonade and talk about something." She took her guest by the hand. They were laughing merrily when Adriana appeared on the terrace. She had a very displeased look on her face. But seeing how happy Emily was, the girl decided to take advantage of the situation. "Jacob, why don't we go for a ride together?" she laughed. "Come on, hurry up, take my hand and let's go." The guest wanted to say something to Emily, but Adriana pulled him forward so much that he had to look under his feet not to fall. Good boy, Jacob, Emily thought. Why is Adriana doing all this? After all, she's going to play with him and leave him. The next day, Emily flew to Italy. The girl did not notice that she began to think about her acquaintance all the time. Jacob seemed to her that guy about whom only one can dream. She felt care and inner strength and tenderness in him. They liked the way he recited poetry. He had a sensitive nature. Adriana could never understand such a man. She favored brute external force. She liked to control and manipulate people. Emily realized that neither her father nor her mother would go through with the marriage. As much as Jacob loved Ode, and it brought the girl relief. The next summer, the girl decided to fly home for a visit. Adriana was there at the same time. God, but you could not at least wait until the end of August. Adriana greeted her sister unhappily. You've ruined my summer. Don't worry, I won't be here for long. She greeted her sister. That evening, Jacob arrived at their house. Emily happily ran out to meet him. Jacob, hello. How happy am I to see you? Rejoiced girl. How are you doing? Hi, Emily. Smiling, he replied. I did not know that you came. I'm fine. How are you? Well, Jacob, let's go. Adriana deliberately interrupted their conversation. We have no time to waste. Jacob wanted to talk to his mother some more, but excused himself and went after her sister. They returned from their walk. A few hours later, Jacob was very upset. And even on the contrary, Adriana was smiling all the time. Why all this circus? Strictly looked at her sister at her. If you don't have any feelings for Jacob, why are you making a dog out of him? What's it to you? Her sister laughed into her eyes. Or are you jealous of me? Jacob is a good guy, Emily argued. He has a pure and vulnerable soul. You're picking on him on purpose, aren't you? Why are you so angry? Adriana said coldly. What do you care about him? Jacob deserves better than you. Calmly replied the girl. What is angry, sister? Are you saying that I don't deserve him? And who is worthy of you? She laughed hysterically. Jesus. I think I'm beginning to realize you've fallen in love with him. Of course, you couldn't have expected anything better. Emily could only fall in love with some surgeon. Yes, I love Jacob, Emily said confidently and made a fatal mistake. All right, let's see if he chooses you. Adriana replied snidely. I'll even bet he'll always run after me like a dog. Did you realize that? Get out of here. I hate you so much. Emily wanted to fly to Italy the same day, but the tickets were gone. She was wandering down the street when Ethan's car came around the corner. Emily, he stopped his car. I want to tell her to her face. I love her. Do you understand that? Jacob, are you drunk? The girl asked in fright. Come on, let's go home. Emily quickly got into the front seat and tried to get Jacob to turn the car around. If you want to talk to Adriana, we need to turn around. Trying to slyly take it, she did. Let me show you. Once we get there, I'll take you straight to her. Yes, you will help me behind the flying tongue, replied the boy. I beg you, help me, I can't live without her. They had almost reached Ethan's house when he turned the other way and stopped the car in a wooded area. It was already dark outside. Adriana, I came up to you, Jacob and your daughter. I love you so much. Come to me, darling. The guy embraced Emily and began to kiss her passionately. The girl at first wanted to break out of his embrace, but then realized that perhaps she would never see him again. I'd rather be with someone I love once in my life than with someone I don't love, she whispered. An hour later, Emily got behind the wheel and brought Jacob home. She took him out of the car and sat him on a bench near the yard. The girl knocked loudly on the gate several times and hid behind a bush of a neighbor's house. Ethan went outside and saw a drunk Jacob. Jacob said his father in shock, Are you drunk? That's what I'm talking about, son. Come on, let's go. Emily got home late. She was overwhelmed with such happiness. She didn't want to see a single face at home, so the girl came home already at midnight. And the next day at 7 o'clock, a cab was waiting for her and took her to the airport in New York. As soon as Emily found out that she was pregnant, she immediately told her father. It made no sense to her to hide it. Emily, why have you embarrassed me like this? James lamented. What am I going to tell people now? You will, she replied calmly. My daughter fell in love with a simple boy, and I wouldn't let her marry him. What an asshole. Lucy Vladimirovna was angry. How can you be so ungrateful, Jamesa? Stop babysitting her. I demand that you forbid her to come home. Let her stay in her Italy. Despite what happened to Mom, James didn't wish his daughter harm. But he did what his wife said. They were forbidden to come to the USA. Her father gave her a villa in Italy for the first time, and her mother took a sabbatical at the Institute and finished it when Sophia was born. The father helped his daughter financially all this time. A year later, Emily learned that Adriana was marrying Jacob. The girl was very hurt by this, but she realized that the guy needed time to see who Adriana really was. At their wedding, naturally, she was not present. Emily felt that no one but Ethan held any interest in her. She transferred all her love for him to their baby girl, Sophia. A year passed after Adriana returned to the USA and got married. Suddenly, Emily's father informed her that they were all flying to Italy together. The girl did not know why, but she got a bad feeling from this news. Everyone arrived at the villa. Emily did not really want to communicate with her relatives, So she and her daughter tried to go somewhere for a while, and everyone looked coldly at the girl. "Emily, we have an important guest tomorrow," her father once told her. "I'd like to ask you not to interfere in our affairs." "I don't care at all." Dryly, she replied. "I don't have to be there at all." "No, you must be present," father replied sternly. "And remember, you're divorced. Your rich husband left you for a mistress." At first, the girl couldn't understand what it all meant. But after the meeting with the important guest, everything began to fall into place. My God, are they marrying Adriana to Kevin? Horrified, she thought. Emily hadn't been on all of their trips. But before they flew back, she did approach her father. "Dad, what's this all about?" She asked him bluntly. "Are you imposing on Adriana, Kevin?" "Emily, but you are a grown woman and should realize that Jacob is not suitable for us." Father answered calmly. "He has already fulfilled his role, and I am very grateful to him for that. But it's time for Adriana to look for a better husband. Kevin's parents are very rich, and he has connections." The father looked at his daughter. "Is that any way to play with people? Jacob, he's not a toy. He's not a thing. That's no way to treat people. Do you understand that? Emily, not crossing the line." James looked at her angrily. "You're talking to me, girl, who's with some beggar. Just for the fun of it. Don't piss me off, or you and your freaks will stay on the street. Don't call Sophia that." The daughter answered boldly. "Thank God, Mom didn't live to see what a monster you've turned into. I don't want anything from you. I give you exactly 3 years." Her father approached her in a rage, so that not you, not this one, would be in my life. "You understand me. In 3 years, you leave my villa." Emily was in shock from the conversation with her father. She couldn't believe he could have changed so much. Everything human in him seemed to have died. There was nothing to hold on to. "If I am no longer your daughter," the girl sobbed, "I don't have a father anymore. As soon as I finish university, I will leave here at once." During the next year, Adriana constantly flew to Italy and lived in a villa with her lover. During this time, Emily and her daughter only spent the night there. Finally, the girl could be put in daycare, and Emily returned not only to the institute, but also began to work. The girl studied to be an architect. After she learned that Kevin divorced his wife and moved to the USA, Emily became very worried. The girl was most afraid for Jacob. Her father had stopped feeling compassion for people, and she was afraid that he might do Jacob some harm. Almost a year passed, and she finally decided to come to the USA. Emily and her daughter looked at the old, shabby houses. It was her only possession. The house had belonged to her mother's parents long ago. When they died, her father deeded it to Emily. "It's a wonderful home. You and I." The woman hugged her 4-year-old daughter. "Sophia, do you feel okay with the accent?" The little girl said. Emily finally received her diploma, and now she had to decide what to do next. She wanted to talk to Ethan right away and tell him everything about his daughter, Adriana's lovers, and the fact that he was just being used. But even before she left, she got a call from a woman who had worked as a maid in the house for many years, and who loved Emily like a daughter. Aunt Vanessa told her that Adriana was pregnant. The woman realized that there were a lot of unknowns in this whole story. The last time Adriana flew to the villa, a very unpleasant conversation took place between them. "Adriana, why are you doing this to Ethan? He loves you." Emily started the conversation. "You know, if it wasn't for you, I would have left him a long time ago." She laughed, just the joy of being hurt. "Making me put up with him for so many years. You think I don't know Sophia is his daughter? She looks exactly like him. You thought if you slept with him, he'd be yours. But it didn't work out. You couldn't get back at me. You ended up losing everything. I'm going to drag it out until the end so I know how much you're suffering. Don't expect me to let him go so easily. You're probably dreaming that I'll divorce him, and he'll finally be yours." Adriana, Jacob, not a thing. Her older sister looked at her sternly. "If I wanted him, I would have gotten him a long time ago. I have the most important trump card on my hands. If anything, Ethan and I have a child together." And once again, Emily's candor became her fatal mistake. Adriana had been thinking of ways to get Kevin pregnant ever since. but to make Jacob always think the child was his. So even when she divorces him, he will come to see the baby. And then Adriana can play with it over and over again. It took her almost a year to do it. The father was very angry. "What's the matter?" He said, "We're all set to get married to Kevin. Dad, I need a little more time to deal with Ethan." Adriana replied. But after she got pregnant, her parents couldn't wait any longer. It was decided that if Adriana wouldn't tell, then James would then talk to Ethan's father and tell him everything in 2 months. The only problem was whether or not to say who Adriana had a child with. Where are you going with this? Adriana was angry with her father. "You're ruining my business." No one really knew what it was all about. After the failed wedding in Europe, she had such a chance to take revenge on her sister that the girl was just glad. She didn't necessarily have to marry Jacob. Her father had picked other temporary options by then, but Adriana had insisted on him. Emily didn't have any particular plan. She just wanted to tell the truth. Jacob. But she knew she needed proof for this conversation. Her Aunt Vanessa had told her that Kevin had visited them often. It was clear from their conversations with Adriana that they liked to go to their old summer house. Before coming to the USA, Emily had talked to her good Italian friend Andrea. He did all sorts of video, communications, and hardware. So he told them at the time that detectives are not needed now. You just put bugs in and you're all set. In New York, the woman met a man who promised them to her. So all that was left was to arrive at the cottage without anyone noticing her and set it all up. Bye. It was a little hard to go to such things with her daughter. So she left her daughter at Aunt Vanessa's for one evening. Not bad at architecture, she quickly found the right place and discreetly set up a mini camera. Emily and her daughter lived in the village in the old house for the time being. Finally, after a few days on her laptop, the woman saw what was happening at Villa. She quickly cut a small video and took pictures using a SIM card she had bought in the USA. The woman sent everything to the right address. Ethan and Emily found the phone number easily. She called the hospital and made up a story that Jacob had asked her to call her back urgently, but his number wasn't answering. In this story, Emily was undergoing surgery. At first, no one wanted to reveal such information, but when the woman burst into tears, the nurse on duty could not stand it. It had been 3 days now, and Jacob just couldn't find a place to go. He wanted so badly to tell his wife everything, but he had a feeling that Anonymous would show up again. If it wasn't for the surgeries he had to focus on Man, it seemed like he would have lost his mind. But there was a great benefit to having some time to himself. Jacob went back over and over again and tried to figure out why he had gotten all this obsession. He reasoned about why he was attracted to them in the first place. He could see clearly now that she and he had always been radically different. He occasionally read some books, especially poetry, and watched informative movies, but his wife spent her days mindlessly. She seemed to have no purpose at all. Naturally, Adriana didn't work anywhere, but there was basically nothing to talk to her about. She never wanted to discuss serious topics. "I don't even know why I married her." Finishing the operation, thought the surgeon, even after I found out she was pregnant. Adriana has absolutely no maternal feelings. She has always been interested only in her life. She's just obsessed with herself, and basically she's empty inside. God, I can't believe I never noticed that before. There's nothing inside her. It's like a pretty, shiny wrapper covering up an empty candy bar. At first it seems like there's bound to be a lot of value behind such a fanatic. But there's nothing there, nothing at all. That day, Ethan had a major turning point in his life. He realized that he had no love for Adriana and never had. She had simply shifted her gaze to his dream, and he believed it. In fact, they were so different that there had never been any point to their relationship. Even if she's carrying my child, the man told himself, I'll divorce her anyway. Adriana, as the dream of the perfect woman for me, was dead forever. I wanted to be deceived. Now I'm reaping the result. Thank God it all happened now and not when I'm 50 years old, and nobody will need me anymore. After all, somewhere there is my woman who will not only love me, but will be able to see me. Jacob was very reluctant to go home. Maria had already left, and he had stayed on the pretext of finishing his business. He rested his head on his hands and settled on his desk. He was about to fall into sleep when he heard distinctive sounds, grudgingly pulled out his phone. "We need to meet tonight at 8 at the Faro Cafe. I sent you pictures of your wife." "So he showed up after all, as I thought," said the doctor. "All right, let's meet. Let's see what else you can tell me." Jacob left the hospital. He didn't want to be late. 7:45. He was already there. "Hello, Jacob," said someone above his head. "How are you doing?" "Emily?" he said in astonishment. "What are you doing here? Didn't expect to see you here." "Yeah, I have a very important work meeting." "I'm sorry, we can meet later and talk." The man looked at the girl carefully. The facial features looked familiar to him. "Oh shit," he cursed. "If Emily leaves, I won't see her again. And I'd really like to talk to her. So be it." "Emily, wait." He jumped up and ran after the woman. "Honestly, I'm so happy to see you. What about your meeting?" She smiled. "Can we meet another day?" "No, Emily, do I need you now?" Unexpectedly, Jacob said. "Emily, my family is falling apart, or rather, has already fallen apart. Adriana has a lover." "How did you know that?" she asked with interest. "Did she tell you that?" "No," Jacob lowered his head. "Someone sent me photos and videos of her with him at our villa. They were there." "Well, anyway, you understand, Jacob, it was," I said calmly to Emily. The man didn't understand what she meant at first. He wanted her to explain it to him, but then it came to him. Emily did. "You're in shock," he pronounced. "But why?" "Jacob, I've loved you for years." The woman was embarrassed. "But Adriana went on principle. She always hated me. She always felt like someone might have chosen me over her. It didn't just hurt her. It drove her crazy. So she knew about it all along." The man said with pale lips. "Yes," Emily replied. "She played you on purpose to hurt me. And when her wedding in Europe broke up, she took the opportunity to psychologically kill me." "Jacob, her father could have chosen someone else for her at that point. They only needed you for a couple years to shut her down and embarrass her back. Her father was going to marry her off to someone else anyway. So he only asked father then because they needed the right man at that moment." The doctor paled for a while. "They were planning to use me from the beginning and then throw me away," the woman said sadly, "and they found a replacement very quickly. In Italy, she seduced a guy who was the son of rich people. Or rather, as I understand it, they all planned it together. Kevin was married to an Italian woman at the time, and his parents disowned him for it. Things worked out with Adriana, and about a year ago, he finally got a divorce. Jacob, his and Adriana's wedding had been planned for a long time. God, I'm such a fool." The doctor's head in his hands. "I naively believed in their good intentions. I had hoped to the end that Adriana would accept me. But why didn't she file for divorce right away? She had her own personal reasons." Emily replied and stroked her daughter's head. "I would never have gotten involved in any of this. And I apologize to you, Jacob, but Jacob, do you remember the day you got drunk and came over?" "Oh, and I was really drunk then." The man sighed. "The only thing I remember is getting in the car, and that was it. I had a fight with myself that day," the interviewee began, "but I couldn't fly out that night because there were no tickets. I was wandering down the street by the courtyard. Suddenly, I saw your car and stopped you. I realized you were drunk. You were going with Adriana to confront her. You were going to tell her everything. By some miracle, I talked you down, and we drove to your house. But at one point you stopped and started hitting on me. We got out of the car. You thought I was Adriana. I tried to get away from you, but you caught me, Jacob. I did it on my own. It was a conscious decision because I loved you. Are you saying that there was something between us? I don't believe my ears," the doctor interjected. "Yes," she replied shortly, "and I have proof. I can even show it to you." "What kind of proof?" in shock, asked Jacob. He was making an effort to believe all this. Sophia put her arm around the girl. "Your daughter Ethan Candle became dizzy from overexertion and began to faint." Jacob slapped the women on his cheeks. "Jacob, wake up." The doctor opened his eyes. Standing in front of him was an agitated Emily. Sophia was looking intently into his eyes. "I'm sorry, it was probably too much even for me." Coming to his senses, the man said, "God, I have a daughter. Who would have thought it? He whispered. Jacob, what's pregnant with Kevin? Emily finished her story. She said that you would always think it was your child, even when you divorced her. So she needed time for you to get used to the role. But what was all that for? Screamed the doctor. I'm beginning to think she's mentally disturbed. Maybe, replied Emily calmly. She wished I'd never gotten you. In her dreams, you were supposed to chase her around like a dog. And it didn't matter that she had another husband now. You were supposed to remain loyal to her to the end and grateful for your supposed child. Jacob Ethan realized that he needed to be alone and process all of this. He had said goodbye to his mother then, without understanding why, but he wanted very much to take the girl in his arms and kiss her. But he restrained his impulse. For several days, Jacob woke up. Finally, the whole mosaic came together and he was able to decide what to do next. After work, he took his wife and they drove to her father's house. Jacob, what's the matter? Adriana protested. Couldn't this wait until tomorrow? No, he answered briefly. I've waited too long as it is. They pulled up in front of the big house. Jacob asked everyone to gather in the living room. James looked at him unhappily. So let's begin. Spoke calmly to his son-in-law. Let's probably go from the very end. And carries a child by another man. The father and his wife turned pale. He realized that nothing more could be hidden. Soon you will perform the wedding of your daughter Adriana to Kevin, with whom she is pregnant, the doctor continued. You, James, never wanted me to marry Adriana. But when trouble came to you, you just used me as a staging post. God judge you for that. And now you. Adriana. He looked at his wife. This is the last day we'll be together. Tomorrow I'll divorce you. But for all the suffering you've caused Emily, don't expect to find happiness. You're incapable of love. And there will be someone who will treat you the way you've treated me and everyone else. And I'll tell you honestly, if you hadn't gotten involved, we might be happy together by now. I know Sophia is my daughter. For the first time in her life, Adriana didn't know what to say to her. Everything Jacob had said was true. Her war that she had set up with them had so consumed her entire life that she had no chance of winning from the start. There was complete silence in the living room. There was no point in lying or denying it. And if you try to smear me in any way or make up any sordid stories, James, I'm talking to you personally. I have footage of your daughter frolicking in our villa with her lover. That will be all. I do hope our paths never cross again. The man ran out of his father-in-law's house and went to his house. His mind was racing, but Jacob realized that he needed to get some sleep. He took a sleeping pill and fell asleep immediately. The next day, when he came home from work, his ex-wife's things were gone. What a petty idiot James is. Jacob said in shock, looking at the fact that the furniture in his mind had been removed. He must be getting back at me. Let him take everything. I'll still have the walls. And they're mine. I bought this house with my own money. He can't take it away from me. The next day was supposed to be his day off. He jumped back in the car, set the navigator, and followed its instructions. It must have been about 3 hours when he finally saw the name he wanted. Where is the old house of Kate's parents, James' ex-wife? Asked Jacob, sitting behind the yard of the old man. Yes, on the next street over. He looked curiously at the stranger and showed him his hand. Jacob stopped his car where his grandfather told him someone ran out of the house. Daddy is here, Sophia shouted joyfully. Daddy, I love you so much, and I love you. He picked the girl up in his arms and started kissing her. God, how have I missed you all this time? I always felt inside that you existed. Jacob, hi. I'm outside. But how are you doing? She smiled. Now I'm doing well. Looked Jacob, the woman intently in the eyes. Now I have a real family, and I will not let you or Sophia go anywhere else.